Tim, when you're ready, ready to roll.
Okay, welcome everyone. Tonight is November 23rd, 2009. This is a public hearing for the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals. Anybody wishing to address the board tonight, please do so at the podium, and be sure to sign your name in with your address as well, and state your name for the record. This is being televised, so we have to insist that you speak at the microphone. If you speak from out here, we're not going to be able to recognize it because the folks at home can't tell who's talking or what you're saying. So please address us from the podium. There are 6 matters on for tonight. We'll take them in order. The first one is ZB 2009-44, a special permit, telecommunications, Clear Wireless LLC. The location is 525 Pawtucket Boulevard, and the petition is for the installation of telecommunication panel antennas 3, dish antennas 2, and related equipment inside the storage room on penthouse level of Clear Wireless according to Section 7.6 of the zoning ordinance. We do have a correspondence that I'll read into the record from Centerline Communications, Andrew Thompson, Centerline Communications LLC, 960 Turnpike Street, Suite 28, Canton, Mass. Dated November 20th, 2009, addressed to the City of Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals regarding Clear Wireless, hearing continuance for special permit request at 525-527 Pentucket Boulevard. To whom it may concern, Clear Wireless LLC, hereinafter Clearwire, would like to respectfully request a continuance for the hearing scheduled 11/23/2009. We are continuing to research the abutter issues that were raised during the previous hearing regarding the master deed. As we would like to be prepared as possible for our next presentation to the board, we respectfully request a continuance for the subject property and special permit application. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions or concerns. Best regards, Andrew Thompson. So the first petition, they're seeking a continuance to do more due diligence. So any discussion with the board?
No, I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, I'll make a motion to continue to December the 14th, 2009.
And that's the second, Bill? Second by Mr. Bailey. And Stephanie, that is the next meeting, December 14th, correct? Okay. Roll call, please.
Continue.
Continue. He's not here.
Continue. Continue.
Okay, that matter has been continued unanimously. There'll be no further notification. Anybody here wishing to speak regarding that petition may show up on that evening. In fact, if there's anybody here now regarding that petition that would like to address the board, we will give you the opportunity to do that, but the matter has been continued until December 14th. Anybody wishing to address the board on that petition? And hearing none, the matter will stand continued until December 14th, 2009, and no further notices are required. For new business, the first petition is ZB 2009, number 52. This is a special permit request. The applicant is S&R Driving School, doing business as Savuth Sath. The address is 16 Pine Street. This is in a neighborhood business district, and the petitioner would like to allow the use of a professional school as a gainful business, known as a driving school, pursuant to Section 12.3 of the Table of Uses. Would anybody representing S&R please address the board? Welcome, sir.
My name is Savuth Sath, S-A-V-U-T-H, last name S-A-T-H. 5 Lancelot Court, Salem, New Hampshire, 03079. I request to have a driving school at 16 Pine Street, Lowell, Mass. 01851 as a commercial building and professional offices located at 16 Pine Street, Lowell, Mass.
Okay. And what type of business, sir? Can you describe the business just briefly for us, please?
This is as a driving school, and the student will come, the parents will come and drop off the students for the class between 3 to 10 students. And there's no other activities besides driving educations at these locations.
Okay, and for the record, the recommendation from the planning board, which you had to attend prior to this, Member Gendron motioned and Member Lockhart seconded to recommend the requested special permit be approved, subject to the proponent demonstrating enough parking is provided per zoning ordinance. The motion passed with all members voting in favor of approval. So I guess one issue that was brought up by the planning board was the issue of parking spaces. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? How many vehicles you anticipate being there? I assume the kids aren't driving there because it's a driving school, right? So
Yes, because at the driving school, the parents just drop off their kids and they leave. So there's 38 parkings over there. There's no parking overnight, and then a big, huge parking lot, and they don't need to park. And because it's a student, they don't know how to drive yet. So the parents to drop off, and then they leave, and they come back to pick up their children.
okay, and I saw your lease, and your lease includes the parking. You can use the parking lot there.
Yes,
Okay. And what are your hours of operation anticipated?
I
to be?
operate, especially I have my full-time job. This is just a part-time job, business for me. I do only after hours business. So the student will come around 5:30 to 8:30 at night, and then they finish and go back home. And then mostly I do driving on the road. That's only, I will go to their house, drop off, and pick up the students at their own homes.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else you'd like to say, sir?
Excuse me?
Anything else you would like to say, sir?
I don't think that I have anything else.
Okay,
I prefer to have more questions.
okay. Any input from the board? Any questions? Bill? And Vesna?
No question, Mr. Chairman.
Corey?
Yeah, one quick question, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little unclear, sir. Now, you're saying your hours are going to be 5:30 to 8:30?
This will be the classroom education, driver education, those mostly at nighttime because I work full-time daytime.
Right.
So from between 5:30 and 8:30 at night.
The classrooms?
Yes.
Okay, when will the driving take place, or will you go out with
Will
students on
take
the road?
place weekend and 5 o'clock if I have time, and summer depend on where I work. And because my hour work from 8 to 4 to 5 o'clock every day, so I do, especially after hours, and weekend most of the time.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, Kevin? And Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody here wishes to speak in favor of this petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wish to speak in opposition? Anybody in opposition of this petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the board?
Make a motion to approve the petition, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second Mr. Noon's motion.
Roll call, Stephanie?
Approve.
Approve.
Approve. Approve.
Sir, you've been unanimously approved, so I'm just going to ask you to just come up and sign this document and hand it to Stephanie and date it. Just anywhere on the bottom is fine, sir. Thank you.
It's right in the bottom.
Anywhere on the bottom is fine. And just date it. Just be careful of the wire when you step over there. Thank you, sir. Yep, just give it to Stephanie and you're all set. Thank you, sir. Good luck. Okay?
Do we need to sign over here?
If you signed in, you can leave it there, sir. And if you need any permits or anything from the building department, I don't think you do, but if you want to check in, I think you're all set to go. I don't think there's...
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Good luck. The next petition is ZB 53, this is a special permit request and a variance request for Harkins Real Estate, Inc. The address is 82 Homestead Road. This is in a traditional single-family district. The request is for a special permit to reconstruct a non-conforming structure after demolition with variances to allow construction on an undersized lot, lot frontage, and from maximum allowed front yard setback according to section 4.5.7 and 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Mr. Flood.
Mr. Chairman, for the record, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing the petitioner. Before I start, I have some handouts if I could bring to the board. I represent Harkins Real Estate, who was prospective purchaser of this property at 82 Homestead Road. The property is presently zoned TSF, and what we're before you tonight for is a special permit to allow the demolition of a non-conforming structure and the construction of a new home, and a variance to allow the construction of the new home on a non-conforming lot without the required frontage. As it presently exists, there's only 21 feet of frontage on this lot, and this zone requires 55 feet. Without the required square footage on the lot as it exists, it contains 6,379, and zoning today requires 7,000. And the maximum front yard setback, which is 20 feet under our zoning, and we're asking for 53 feet. The lot that we're asking the variance on was originally established in 1917. And I think on the front of that handout to you, there's a copy of the original plan. I've put a check on that plan that shows where it's located. And the frontage and the square footage as they presently exist today was established then. Dean Jenkins, who's coming tonight, I don't know where he is, but he's the builder, and he will testify as to the condition of the existing building. I think if you look at, I think it's the second picture that I gave you. It's an existing two-story residential structure and surrounded on both sides by large two-family buildings. Because of the shape of the lot and because of the frontage as it exists, it is impossible to build a new home and to provide parking for 2 cars without moving the house back. What we've attempted to do is to locate the lot where we would at least, locate the house where we would at least meet the side yard setback as required by present zoning. And also we've tried to conform the house to at least it look like the house that was taken is to be taken down. It's not a large house. It's approximately 1,580 square feet, and we feel that that's the best spot on the lot for it to be located.
Are you going to be able to create any off-street parking if it's approved? Are you going to be able to create any off-street parking?
Oh, yes, we'd have a minimum of 2, and we'd probably have more because we can go through. Right now, the existing house is 19 feet wide, and the lot is 21 feet wide. So you can't even get a car in there. So by moving it back, at least we can get the cars off the street and park them. And, you know, the shape of the lot is, it's like a pie shape, and it's different from the other lots in the surrounding neighborhood. Most of them are either square or rectangular. This one's a little different. And with that 20-foot setback, there's not much frontage, there's not much we can do. So I think there's definitely a hardship as it pertains to this lot. And like I said, we're building a single-family home. We're trying to make it look like the others in the neighborhood. We're providing parking off the street, and I think we're, there is a hardship, and we're not, we're not derogating from the intent of zoning. So we're here to answer any questions. Dean's not here yet, but I think if you look at the pictures, you can see that the condition of the house is such that it can't be saved. And even if it could be saved, I don't think anyone would want it rebuilt where you can't get cars off the street. And I know there's some people here, because I've seen the pictures, and they can probably testify as to the condition of that house. I didn't speak with any of them, I don't know what they're looking for, but we're glad to talk to them.
Okay.
But I think what we're proposing is an improvement as to what's there today, so.
Right, when I went by, I mean, there was, it jumped, either, I think it was a bird or a squirrel jumped out of a hole in the back, so I know that it's not inhabited right now. I mean, there's,
Well, if you look at the original pictures, you can see the condition of the inside of the house, the condition of the foundation. According to Dean, it cannot be saved.
so there was a, so just for the record, the planning board voted to deny the approval based on just the magnitude of the request of the variance. You've addressed one of the variances, the hardship. I mean, you can see that the lot is
Right.
unique as to the other lots, and there's not much you can do with the
There's nothing
front.
we can do about the frontage because it was established in 1917. It's 20 feet.
Yeah.
There's nothing we can do about the square footage. It was established in 1917. And in order to allow for the parking, we have to move the house back so we can get cars in. And that's why we're asking for the maximum setback. If the maximum setback you allow under zoning is 20 feet. If we moved it back, we still couldn't get a driveway on the side because you need 3 feet from the lot line. The minimum you can have for a driveway is 8 feet, and then you need some space from the house. So I think it'd be difficult to do it. So we feel by putting it back there and meeting the side yard setbacks, the other variances, there's really not much we can do about, and I think there's definitely a hardship.
Right, I mean, from looking at it, it appears, which I was confused why the planning board, did they see any plans or anything from the
No,
property?
just what I submitted to you people.
Because it
You know, there
doesn't,
was some reference to historic, but if there was a historic problem, I mean, I've got Steve Stoll's signature on a demolition permit, so he doesn't have a problem with it, so I don't know just
Yeah.
what that's about.
I mean, I don't know what the point in saving that, if the house can't be rebuilt, what's the point in leaving a dilapidated eyesore there? And I don't think it enhances the neighborhood at all, from what I can see.
It is an
but-
eyesore, and I think these people will testify to that, so. I mean, Dean can testify as to the condition of the building and answer any questions, and we'll be glad to listen to what the neighbors have. I think we want to satisfy them, and I think probably for the benefit of the neighborhood, they want something to clean that lot up, so.
Okay, I mean, Mr. Jenkins? I think we were discussing the shape of the house and, you know, what condition. Is it something that is salvageable? Does it make any sense, or is it?
First of all, I'm Dean Jenkins with Jenko LLC. I'm representing Michael Harkins, and I'll be his contractor building that house, so just for the record. But the reality of it is that there's really no way of saving that house. The foundation has crumbled so much. It's an old stone foundation, and I think when we get right down to it, we'll find out that there's really no footing there as well. There's just a lot of big rocks, and it's laid on top of it. And over time, those things shift, and it's really lost its way. It's really sagging, and if you look at it from top to bottom, you know, the roof has leaked for so long that, you know, you can see that everything has sagged enough, and there's literally air, you know, coming into the house all over the place, and I just don't think structurally it's going to work. So even if you look at the keeping the footprint and so forth, when you get, or keeping that foundation, you come down to that level, and I'm going to call up Mr. Camacho and say, come on out and take a look at this. Is this structurally sound? And he's probably, you know, going to look at it and tell us what we already know. The answer is no, it's not structurally sound. So the reality of it is that it probably would be, while we have an opportunity here on a house that's sitting right on top of the street with no parking, you know, currently, that if we have an opportunity to move it back in the lot, we can clean that up, make sure that there's parking, you know, off the road and on the site. And in terms of the scope of the house, the thought process was, and we probably could have turned it sideways and had the front door like a regular colonial and so forth, but instead it's wiser because what's currently there is a gable-facing house. We decided to come forward with a gable-facing house and, you know, try to keep it in it's close in the context. I mean, obviously, a home that was built in the early 1900s and a home that's built now, I doubt very much that if we were building off the original footprint, it would be wise for a person to come in and buy a house that's 19 feet by 22 feet, I think is the footprint of the house. So we try to keep it smaller. We try to keep it down with the what it would fit, without being overwhelming any of the existing houses. There's multifamilies to either side of us, so I don't think it will do that. It's not going to dwarf anybody's home by any stretch of the imagination. And a little further down, the houses are a little bit bigger coming in. So it's a home that I've built a lot of in the city, and normally when they're done, everybody seems to be pretty happy with it. So, and I think in this case, just structurally, from top to bottom, this house isn't going to make it.
Was the zoning changed, Attorney Flood, if you know, because the petition says a traditional single-family, and they did look like multi-families on either side to me.
They're probably non-conforming.
Yeah.
They're probably non-conforming.
Okay.
And I think if you look at the assessors map I gave you, some of them have 2 lots, and they tie them together, so.
And what you're proposing is a single-family, so clear.
Single
okay.
family, right.
So if the house would have to come down, it wouldn't make sense to put the foundation where it is now. It wouldn't.
There's no way of getting to the back, so you don't change the ability to put any parking other than keeping what's on street. And I think when you get right down to it, like again, when you start looking at it, even if you wanted to save some of the structure, try to make it right, you're gonna keep tearing apart because from top to bottom, there's nothing there. Then you get down to the footprint and you're building a new house. So at that point in time, you say to yourself, well, what makes more sense overall to everything here? And for us, bringing it off the street and having parking that's, on-site parking rather than on the street, and putting a brand-new home, really nice home with nice amenities, not too big, not that much bigger than what's there, a little more than 1,500 square feet. Sort of like I was in recently to do Sagamore Street, a home about that size when we're all said and done, so. That was the thinking on it.
Okay.
I think under our zoning, any new reconstruction of a building does require parking, and the only way we can put parking in there is to move the house back.
Right, is that going to be side by side or tandem, or how many spaces do you anticipate?
They're gonna be stacked spaces, I don't believe.
So one in front of the other, regular?
I don't believe we can get tandem in there, and I think that Jim Aho has created, basically showing that. I'm
Yeah.
not to be honest with you, I don't have the plot plan, because
No, I think it'd be stacked, but if they wanted to extend it, they could put it, there's a large backyard still there, that they could put more parking in if they wanted.
Yeah, no, I just think, I meant tandem, like
Stack.
one behind the other,
Yeah, one
which is
behind the
stacking.
other,
So.
right.
Okay. Bill, any comments?
It's three rooms. 3 rooms, 1 bedroom? Yeah. Yes, well, I don't count the baths, so there are 3 rooms, 4 with a bathroom. Is it 2 floors? You have the false walk-up, but then that's it. It kind of goes to an open attic, and that's it. So the attic could have been. Space is only on the first floor. Correct.
And the new proposal, how many rooms?
There are 5 rooms, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths.
1.5 baths, okay. And the parking, what's the parking? I don't see a particular parking plan, so
Well,
Can you-
there would be a driveway with 2 spaces built on it.
the driveway is going to be positioned right in front of the home?
It would come on the side. I don't have the plan here, but I submitted all my plans with my petition.
Yeah, I think you guys have a copy of the plan.
Yeah, but I don't see a parking plan.
No, but we would, there's plenty of room for a driveway coming in.
Well, if you guys would give me a minute, I could probably check the truck and see if I have it, but I'm sure what we have.
This isn't it, because that shows the existing house, but it'd come up
Yeah, it would come in, and I think what he proposed is that he would have 2 parking spaces, I believe it would be tandem, and coming in the side. But whichever way it works, obviously, it's gonna meet any of the zoning and so forth. It's already opened up all the way. All 20 feet are opened up right now, so.
So facing the house, the parking would be on the left-hand side?
You know, you would move it to one side or the other, I would think. So, you know, in this case, we've got to propose that the farmer's porch would be to the left, the little farmer's porch in front, and so therefore it would probably be to the left.
Okay. And is the new structure, per the plan here, going to be basically, you'll be looking at the new structure just like you're looking at the existing home? Will it be positioned the same way?
Gable facing, yes, gable
Okay.
facing.
I think there's a picture on that front sheet that we gave you, Bill,
Yep.
on the handout.
So did you explore any opportunities to rehab it because of its architectural,
There is no
Definition.
architectural significance to the home.
there isn't?
No, not architectural, no. There aren't architectural significance.
Mr. Jenkins, if you could just speak from the,
Sure.
right at the mic.
There isn't a lot of architectural significance to the home. There's some legal significance that, you know, understanding with the homestead and so forth. But architecturally, it's not much different than a lot of the homes out there right now in terms of look and so forth. You know, kind of the older homes. On the exterior of the home, at one time, it may have had some qualities about it, but because it's been in such disrepair for so long, that it probably, a facelift isn't going to quite do it.
When was the last time that house was, somebody lived in there? Do you have any idea of that?
I don't know that answer.
Okay. So maybe somebody in the
Maybe the
neighborhood
neighbors
might
do.
know when they speak.
A year or two ago.
Yep, okay.
Bob, was it ever condemned?
Not to my knowledge.
There's no X on it. And the fire department put an X.
Nothing like that.
A landscape plan, what would that involve?
What I normally like to do is when whatever we disturb, particularly in the front, is we replace that with sod. So right away, we're going to have instant grass in the front of the home. You know, you'll have some shrubbery, you'll have some plantings and so forth, and then the driveway and probably an asphalt walkway to the front stairs coming up. And then we're going to plant sod in the rear of the home where you disturb, and cutting down some trees and turning it, slightly into a yard. We'll leave a buffer in the back as we always do, because the next buyer is going to want the same thing as most of the neighbors here, which is a little bit of privacy if they can have it, And that area that gets disturbed, we will landscape hydroseed and have grass growing, in the spring.
Do you have an idea how many of those trees you would have to take down and back?
I don't, but, like my dad always used to tell me, as little as possible, because, trees cost money. If they're the type of trees that could fall in a home, if they're the type of trees that are old and not healthy, then they have to come down. If they are a healthy tree, and they don't pose any type of threat to the foundation or to the porch or to, any of those, that type of quality, we'll try to keep as many up as we can. To say how many, I wouldn't be able to tell you offhand.
And what's the square footage of the new proposed?
The proposed home is 1,580 square feet. And it could be paled down if you had to just under 1,500, but this is more of a style of a home that we've grown accustomed to building. And the lot itself, taking the house away, if it was just a lot, even though it has the 20 feet of frontage, it opens up pretty nicely. So you would have the ability to push this thing back and have a little home with a farmer's porch in front.
And the size of the current building is?
I think the footprint was, size of it was, I think it's 22 by 21 or 19 or by 23. So that's footprint-wise and floor-wise, I think is about 900.
Okay, that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman, but I'd like to hear what the neighbors have to say also. Thank you.
Sure. Vesna?
Good evening, sir. The proposed bedroom with the new addition, the new home, is it going to be all upstairs or downstairs?
They'll all be upstairs.
Upstairs. And the bathroom, one of them the half bath going to be downstairs and one upstairs?
Yes.
The parking, you said stack parking. Suppose the new owners intend for more parking, can they go to the back and park in the back instead of?
They could still, they could if we do it properly. There's a lot of room back there, quite frankly, I believe that in proposing this situation, if there's a way that the neighbors would want to have it, we could do it. I believe we could either do a tandem. I think we could probably fit side by side. I think by fitting side by side and in the front of that house, if we can, from our perspective, would probably eliminate any idea of extra cars and so forth. You would hope, but by tandeming it, then you insure it, because now you can go around the back if you had to and add additional parking. So we're open to whatever makes sense to.
Is it true that the current home now have no off-street parking? Is that correct?
There is not.
Right.
They must have to park on the street. I don't know, put it this way. It says, I believe, on the footprint there that it's like 15 feet, but the reality of it is it seems like it's maybe 10 feet to me.
Right,
It's very close,
Right,
so.
I see. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Corey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. Now, we know that Mr. Jenkins has done several projects similar to this. Like you said, is it Saratoga, the one off of Liberty Street?
Yeah.
And Lowell, that was very,
Walker
very,
Street,
it's reminiscent of this petition, a dilapidated home. And we know you've done several projects throughout the city and done a great job to this point. But I do have a question regarding the structural integrity of this building. Now, do you have any kind of report? I know, you're very knowledgeable and you're a pro, and it didn't look good from what I see. I mean, I'm no engineer, but I did walk around the building. I could barely get through it with all the growth in the backyard, for starters, and then it's become a dumping ground too, I can see. But regarding the structural integrity, do you have any kind of report, analysis, or anything like that?
I haven't done any type of structural reporting, okay? I just figured the eye itself would probably, same as you saw, Corey, you know what I mean? I didn't think I had to spend the money, honestly, to find out what probably most of us in this room would agree, that it's in tough shape, and that it would need more than just a little significant, here or there to make it right. It's not ready to be inhabited in any way. And, once you get to that, once you start trying to fix something of this proportion, you end up, making more of a problem than if you tore it down and did the right thing with the structure.
No, I'm in agreement with you. It looks very, very dilapidated. It's been neglected for a long time. And
So to answer your question, no. If I had to, we could. I'm sure that there's a lot of structural issues here that, I don't like to spend anybody's money if I could help it. But, the reality of it is that I'm sure. And I'm sure from the building perspective and so forth, the building commissioner himself would be able to give you that kind of report if he was able to walk inside. He could do that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Kevin?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just note that there does appear to be a hardship based on the size of the lot and the shape of the lot. I would like to see a parking plan, understand the parking layout for something like this. That's my only comments.
And Rick?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. The house is in rough shape out there. It's pretty overgrown. Dean, you said you're going to try to cut only certain trees out there. It'd be nice to see if this would get passed, that you only cut certain trees, like you said. But also, too, I'm worried about the parking up front, and I'm wondering if, through Mr. Flood, is there any way we could not let them pave out back?
Sure.
If, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you give 2 parking spots for the home, that's all it needs.
Yeah.
We don't need the neighborhood inundated with hot top out back and stuff. It is a nice-looking lot, believe it or not. It's
a great
in
lot.
tough shape.
I mean, once it gets opened up and cleaned up, it'll be a great lot.
It's
It
pretty good
really
size.
will. And if parking, I guess there's a certain reality. Okay, is that a lot of people end up there's 2 working, homes. Maybe somebody's got a truck, and you try to understand that what's going to be there. So, you could say, there's a certain reality to life. All right, we can sit here in a meeting and say, you know what, let's keep it to 2 parking spaces. But if we think in long terms and we think, smarter in the beginning, we say, okay, what's the best way if Mr. and Mrs. whoever did own a truck to make sure that they weren't impacting everybody else? And number one is, of course, during the winters, especially like last winter, if whatever vehicles they own could be off the street, there's a certain reality. I mean, we can say, yeah, we can limit it to 2 parking spaces, but somebody moves in and has, a child that's 17, 18 years old with a car, there's a reality. So I think if we think in terms of setting it up that if we had to, or if somebody had to come before this board and say, look, we need some relief relative to parking, it would already be a fairly simple situation. Now, to eliminate any that happening from the start, there's a chance that if we put some sort of buffering between the driveway, the tandem driveway, and the front of the house on that side where the driveway is to the walkway, okay, then you would stop somebody from parking on their own grass, all right, up front there, and you'd basically have a buffer, whether it be a fence, some shrubbery, whatever, that would run parallel to the driveway at the point of the walkways and beyond to the street, and that buffer it off. So
That's all I'd be worried about is, out
Okay.
back getting fully
So
paved.
you want some sort of restriction on the back of the lot?
Well, either that, yeah, because it's,
Yeah.
again, Mr. Flood, they start paving everything, next thing you know, we got 16 cars back there or whatever's going on. It's a nice little neighborhood. I mean, it's not,
Yeah, it is.
and that's what I'd like to see. I mean, Dean's done a lot of houses in the city, and they all come out nice, and he's done the tight lot over there on the old property over there. Dean came out nice. It's just one of those things, they start to pave, next thing is a car, next thing it's a boat. The neighbors have to live in that neighborhood, it's.
Well, I
you'd hate
think
to-
then, Rich, if we look at it, right, I mean, if you do something along that side, you can go longer with a driveway, and then you could buffer the other side of that driveway as well, so now you're kind of saying, okay, here you are, this is where you can go.
Yes.
You plant 6 arborvitae on one side, a hardy, tall, 6-foot arborvitae, and along the way, and in a couple of years, you've buffered off, the front of that and the side of that, and,
That's what I'd be looking for, something like that.
and feel a
It is-
little more private to them.
It's a little rough. I'd like to hear from the neighbors also, but that's what I'd be looking for. Thank you.
And I agree with the idea that I think it does meet the criteria for a hardship. It's clearly the unique size and shape to that lot as opposed to everybody else's lot in that neighborhood. And the house is, if the house is basically not able to be rebuilt, and it doesn't appear from what I could see that it is, or at least it's financially feasible to do it, and even if you did, you're still stuck with a house with no parking.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think it clearly meets the hardship requirements. I think it meets the special permit requirement to, that it's not going to have any substantial derogation to the current neighborhood. In fact, I don't think that house enhances it at all, despite maybe the fact that it looks like it was built in 1917, 18. I don't necessarily think that that's a good thing. But, I think that you've made every effort to make with today's building, that house that you propose to fit into there. You could put a cookie cutter in there at a lot less money to build, but it wouldn't do anything for the neighborhood. So it looks, from the plans at least that you submitted, that I think this board would hold you to. It looks as though you've made the effort to make the house look as much like the neighborhood as you can without, going into any really long, drawn-out architectural plans. So I don't want any parking in the back. I don't think that makes any sense. I'd maybe put a restriction that parking shall not extend beyond the rear border of the house on either side. I think you have plenty of room on either side, and,
Why don't I suggest that we present a parking plan to be approved by the building department?
that could be a condition, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll hear from the
And then-
neighbors, because nobody's made up their mind on anything, but I'm just saying that this is, I'd really like to hear a little bit about the house and the neighborhood, if anybody has anything. So, anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this,
Can I just
anything
do
else?
one more thing? And I don't know if the neighbors have seen the plan of the home, the colored plan of the home.
Well, they haven't seen the color.
So, I mean, I think that's important, so they get an idea, instead of coming up blind and, they'd be able to get an idea of what the home, when it's done, will look like. Maybe different siding color, but that'll be the style.
Okay. All right, anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition, in favor of the petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And anybody wishing to address the board in opposition of this petition, one at a time, please, sir, you can start by you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name's Robert Kalberg. I live at 60 Ruth Avenue.
Can you spell your last name, sir?
It is Karlberg.
And I'm sorry, your address again, sir?
60 Ruth Avenue.
Okay, and where is that in relation to the property?
2 houses down.
3 houses down? So that's a street that's perpendicular?
On the same side, correct.
Okay. Okay, what would you like to tell us, sir?
Yeah, first of all, I haven't formed my opinion for this home or against this home. So one of the things is there's not a lot of information on the home, so there's some concerns as to, what are they really building? So tonight is like the first time we've actually heard anything. I'd just like to say on my part, I moved into this little area that's very unique in Lowell that is single-family homes. We have an area that's very unique with the 2 schools, which one boards that nobody has actually even mentioned it, because there should be some concern or somebody from the school committee really to address certain issues, especially with a 2-family home. I'm not saying this is for it or against it, but if you're overlooking a school, there might be concerns. So I don't know how the laws are on that. But I moved into this area for the simple fact it was a single-family home, and these homes are very, very unique, okay? You don't find this really too much in Lowell. We're bridged on one side by Hildreth Street, which has really been overbuilt. We have probably over 1,000 apartments within a couple of 100 feet. So some of the concerns are some of the builders have done certain things that we see as aggressively building. So one of my concerns, first listening tonight, is that we're going from a 1-bedroom home to a 3-bedroom home. The other concern is parking. Parking is a serious issue on this road. I mean, major issue. There's been neighborhood fights. There's no place to put the snow. Where do we put the snow right now? Particularly in where this little house is. So what happens with this little cul-de-sac is that it doesn't get plowed properly. The other thing is if you have 3 bedrooms, where are the people going to park? Typically, people are going to park on the street. So one of the other issues is you have neighbors over, where are they going to park? This home is so tightly nested into this cul-de-sac that the neighbors all park on the road. So my neighbor directly across from me has 4 cars. 3 cars are on the road. I'm kind of concerned that this same thing may happen. We're not preventing people from moving in. We'd actually like to see the same little house with the same exact square footage. The 1-bedroom home may be moved into the back. I still am open to that concern, but it bothers me that I'm hearing a 3-bedroom home right now versus a 1-bedroom home. That's a real serious concern. I know how people are. People move people in, they come over and they stay with them and they don't leave, those type of things. So there's major issues with that. So it's 1,580 square feet. They're actually going to keep the same footprint and the same square diagonal of the home. I haven't seen the drawings, but based on what I've seen, I now see a home that basically is a very small home in the front, but with a very long home in duration. So there's that issue also. I don't really want to comment on the historical aspect. I mean, I don't know, so I really can't comment on that. I do know there's a big mix match of homes. We're trying to keep the home identical. One of the things that would be nice is to maybe have a cape that would match the other homes in the area. I don't see that as being, from what I'm seeing the first time on the drawing, has anything to do. It would be a major mismatch. What I'm seeing is a home that's being put on a lot that's really doubling in size. Now, again, I don't have any information on that. I do know a little bit about the home. It was a first home of the WPA, so there's some uniqueness into there. I don't know whether that means anything. Maybe there's somebody should be here from the Historical Society just to take out of the home before it's actually torn down. So there might be something inside that.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but if I remember correctly, I think Attorney Flood said that Steve Stoll signed the demolition permit. Maybe I misheard that, but
He did.
is he still the director of Historical Society, or?
Yes. And he also took pictures and photos, and he asked that prior to any demolition, if it at all took place, that they would be allowed to go back inside and see if there's anything that they would want to take out. So.
Okay.
You want it for your file?
Sure. Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir, but
No, that's quite
I didn't
all
want
right.
to forget
No,
to ask the question.
I'd rather see it very interactive myself. I think one big thing with most builders is that they really need to work with the community, and in this case, the neighbors. So the neighbors really, I'm not saying the neighbors should have a say in actually what gets built, but they should be consulted. That would build a good relationship. Right now, people have this misconception maybe of builders do certain things and then they don't really do what they say. It's kind of like the whole parking thing. I don't want to keep going over the parking thing because I think we've already beat that down. But I'm really concerned about a bigger home being built on this lot, and that's what I'm kind of seeing right now by the 3 bedrooms.
Okay, and would it help if he had a driveway? That's what he's proposing, as opposed to no driveway right now?
I think if he had a driveway and pulled cars off the street, that would be great. I'm not convinced that people will do that. People are going to park wherever they want. They have the freedom to park on the street. So that concern is just because you provide parking spot doesn't mean they're going to park there. So that's going to be an issue, I think, from day one. Whoever moves in there is going to have 3 cars, is going to end up parking in front of somebody else's house, and it's going to be another issue.
Well,
And again, I live down the street. I don't have this issue, but I've seen the police there. You know?
Okay.
And now you're adding potentially 3 cars.
Right, but I think the proposal, at least if I heard the proponent properly, they're adding maybe 3 cars, but they're going to provide for at least 3 off-street parking
All right.
spots, which I think would relieve the pressure that you have in that neighborhood, because clearly you do. And even today, when there's no snow on the ground, but I imagine when there's snow on the ground, it's worse. You even said you park in front of that, the snow is pushed in front of that house. Yeah. So it seems to me that if somebody's going to go to the effort of buying a home with a driveway, they might use it.
I mean, there is obviously a solution. I know nobody wants to hear it, and I know the builder doesn't want to hear it. But if they exited out toward where the school was, they wouldn't have this issue. Essentially, what you have is a pie shape that comes down into a little funnel that goes out in the road. Well, if they had access to the back side of the lot, it would eliminate this problem completely.
Is there a street back there?
Well, there's a school. They'd have to, again, you'd have to have a variance. But you see what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah,
you can't
no, it
get...
would definitely make sense. It's a wider lot, but I don't think you can get access to a school unless you're
Well,
on a public way.
I think anything can be done through whatever procedures, just like we're trying to do tonight. I mean, the variances are major, I see. I mean, you're going from 6,000 to 7,000, you're going from 21 feet, and you want 55 feet. I mean, you're going from 28 feet to 50 feet. Those are all major concerns, and I think the neighbors will want to work with the builder, but we want to be part of the decision.
Okay, anything else, sir?
Nope, that's it.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition of this petition, in opposition? Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Arlene Kroon Browning. I'm an abutter to that building to 82 Homestead Road. And I've been a lifelong resident of Lowell. I've gone to Lowell High School, University of Lowell. We ended up living here as teacher and engineer. We bought into the revitalization of Lowell and the preservation of Lowell. And we've invested in Lowell properties and maintained property in Centerville, and have been distressed as to what's happened to Centerville over the years in terms of construction. I'm here to say that I'm here to petition the board not to knock down that building. I hate to see the demolition of that building. I understand it was one of the very first WPA projects. They were originally called birth control houses, and on either side of 82 are duplexes, but the duplexes were considered half houses each. They're very small duplexes. I'm appalled that the Historic Commission has signed off on these houses to maintain the integrity of this neighborhood. It was definitely a working-class neighborhood. I know my father, when he came home from World War II, he was one of the remaining Pearl Harbor survivors here in Lowell. He moved into Homestead Road, and we were all raised there, and we all went through the schooling and education and became doctors and lawyers and teachers and went on with our lives, and I'm still invested in that neighborhood. And I want to see that integrity of the historic buildings maintained there as to why we even stayed in Lowell. That particular house was the cornerstone of the entire neighborhood. And if I had more time, which I would petition this committee for a postponement on any decision, I could even provide you with photographs of how that house looked in its heyday, but right now the photographs are all in slides, and so it's going to take time to process them. It was the loveliest house on the street. It was like a gingerbread house. It was so well maintained. But a widow has lived there, and she could no longer maintain it. The pictures that you're seeing tonight were taken after a lot of destruction has been recently done there. When they cleared the house out, they knocked out the upper window, knocked it ajar, and left it like that. Somebody did something to the front door, and now it won't even close, the outer storm door, so it's left hanging open. This is all most recent. The for sale sold sign is just akimbo against the front of the building. For some reason, construction has been done. They have ripped up the entire front lawn, and under the presumption that this is going to pass, have put in new water and plumbing already, and all the dirt and the soil and the rocks are left there. My husband and I put up a picket fence in front of that house to continue all around the circle. They've ripped that out, and then the pictures were taken. I really feel that we need more time to look over any ordinances or laws. I mean, I'm not a specialist on this. I mean, as a teacher, I am interested in the history of Lowell, and I would like to see why the Historic Commission would possibly sign off on that. I think we need to research those laws and how he did that. There was a driveway in that yard. There's a special easement that goes back for many years between that house and the other duplex abutting on the other side. And that abutter was unable to be here today, so you're not even able to get that input. They're not here, they're away. They had a shared driveway, and if you drive up their shared driveway, there is a driveway within that property. So the opening is a shared area, then there's a driveway. I want to make sure that I've addressed any questions that you might have about the property. I think if we're just talking about money, then we can say that this house that they're planning to put in, a new house as opposed to one that needs a lot of work, it's certainly going to increase my property values, is it not? But I'm not here to talk about money. I'm here to talk about maintaining the historical integrity of that neighborhood, the jewel of the entire little. If you've ever been down that street, it's like you're going back in time. And the house that they're putting in is nearly twice the size that was there. And it is abutted on each side by double half houses, not huge duplexes. I have a half house and a half house together. So you're going to put in a house that's bigger than the duplex that's there, and it doesn't look like the other houses. I wish, in an ideal world, that the builder, and I hear names like Mr. Flood that I respect tremendously, and Mr. Harkins, who did a wonderful job on 11th Street. 11th Street, there was a home across the street from our house. We own a house on 11th Street as well. And when he bought the property, I was nervous as to what was going to happen there, and he went in and did a wonderful restoration. So when I heard that Mr. Harkins was involved in this, I was heartened to think that maybe he would take up the challenge of restoring this house. Maybe we could understand if he has to move it back a little. Maybe we could understand that he has to add another room out the back, but not to destroy the integrity of that entire neighborhood and it's just going to look like the rest of the houses and the rest of the neighborhoods, mishmash. Right now, it's very unique, and this was the jewel of the neighborhood. That's all I have to say tonight, gentlemen, if you have any questions. I've lived there my entire life.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else here wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? In opposition?
I want to say something.
Sure. Take your time, ma'am.
Sorry.
Welcome, ma'am.
My name is Leslie Rowe, R-O-W-E. I live at 98 Homestead Road. That's, when you go down Homestead Road, it's the second house on the right, going down towards the house we're talking about. I didn't plan on speaking tonight. I just came, to listen to see what was going on. But I've only been living in that neighborhood for a year and a half. I lived in the Highlands, and I lived in South Lowell prior to that. And Centerville was to be honest with you, my last choice when I was looking for a house, because of, just over the course of the years and driving around the neighborhoods, it wasn't one of the areas I was looking for. When my realtor brought me over there and showed me the house that I live in now, I was shocked. I was like, this neighborhood exists here, I was really, I was impressed, and I rode around, and I looked at all the houses, and I said, it's just a nice neighborhood. It's so different compared to all the other streets next to us. And my daughter loves, she was like, oh, look at this, and it was just, it was really surprising to go down there and see that. And that red house stands out in my mind, the house we're talking about now, because it was just right there. And I was like, it was like a little storybook house, even though it's a little, falling apart. My house was built in 1917. I have like a pixie house. I have 2 bedrooms. My foundation is very strong. The previous owners redid my whole house. Siding, the walls, except for the upstairs has a little work to be done, the roof. I have 975 square feet. That's what I'm zoned for. And, my daughter and I live there. It's just 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. And I have a little piece of land there. I have put a little fence around it. And since I've been there, I've never had any problems in that neighborhood. It's quiet. I have a few dogs here and there. But it's just a nice place to come home to. And my concern was, I wanted to know what they were going to do with this house. And I saw the picture there. And looking at that picture, if that's the structure that's going to be put there, in my mind, it just seems too big for that spot. It just doesn't seem like it's going to work out. I mean, I know, this gentleman's telling us, the plans, and that he, in his mind, this is what's going to go there. But to look at that 3-bedroom, I mean, I live in a 2-bedroom, and mine's 975 square feet. And he's talking about 1,500 square feet, and this particular piece of property, it just doesn't seem possible to me. And, that's my concern, and like with the parking too. You have 3 bedrooms. My daughter and I, we have 2 cars. She just got her license. I have off-street parking. We both park one in front of the other. We make arrangements, who's gonna go first in the morning, and I park on the street if I have to. But that's another issue. 3 bedrooms, it just brings more, you can say you're going to have 1 car, 2 cars. Most families have 2 cars, and then when there's children involved, like my daughter got her license, there's 3 cars. And then sometimes we have a few neighbors that have, more people living with them than, what there should be, and there's more cars that, for one house, 5 cars for one house, but I think that will be an issue eventually with the parking. And in that area, like with the snow, when I first moved, I saw it last year, was my first winter there. You can see where the plows have a hard time going down and turning and trying to dispose of the snow. There's, last year with all the snowstorms we had, the snow it just accumulated. I mean, it was like building up mounds and mounds, and they tried to get rid of it, I mean, my plow guy, then the city plow guys, and they were just trying to move it, it's just so, and you can turn the corner. I have to go down the street and take a left, and if the snow is there, I mean, it's just pushed up. There's no place to go. You can't just drag it down the street and drag it here, you have a school here you're dealing with. It's gonna block, the entrance and the exit out of the street. But, I mean, I'm a little nervous here, but I just,
You're doing fine.
just sitting here listening and just visualizing, that picture and that property, it just doesn't seem like it's gonna work.
Okay,
All
anything
right.
else, ma'am?
Pardon?
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Anybody else here wishing to speak in opposition?
Hi, Greg Scondrus. I live 86 Homestead Road. I pretty much agree with the folks that just spoke to you the past three. All I know is if you start pulling teeth, you're going to ruin the smile of the neighborhood. You know, kind of like to keep the dwelling the way it is. Refinish it, it's workable. Okay? So I don't tear it down. I like to refinish the workmanship.
Okay, anything else, sir?
That's about it.
Okay,
It's a
thank you.
nice little neighborhood, you know,
No, it's definitely a nice neighborhood.
the way it is now. That's it. I think it could be rehabbed, absolutely, my opinion.
Okay, has anybody looked into have you looked into the rehab, sir? Have you heard that it can be rehabbed or anything?
I can't hear.
Have you looked into it? I mean,
Yes, I have.
Okay.
All it needs to just be gutted out and refinished, you know?
I
The
think you
city of
would,
Lowell, the HUD department just replaced the roof there for the folks that lived there before. You know, they felt that it was worthwhile saving. They wouldn't have done the roof. They wouldn't have done the siding or painted it, you know? It's just been neglected because the old gal passed away, you know?
right, but wouldn't you have to weigh in the cost of rehabbing a one-bedroom house to what you could possibly get
It's
for it?
actually a two-bedroom house right now, downstairs, right? It's a two-bedroom house upstairs, full bath. Downstairs, you got large dining room and a possible little den.
You have a kitchen, a little den,
Right.
and a living room.
Right.
5 rooms in total and a bath.
I guess my question is just a practical question. If the owner was living there and the owner
Well,
wanted
they have
to...
an easement that the fellow that could own that house could park in the back. They both can share the same driveway.
But what I'm saying is if the owner decided to rehab the house, that might make sense if the owner wants to stay there.
Yeah.
But for the person who lives there now to rehab the house and to be able to put the money in they need to, and then is anybody going to buy it, or is it just going to sit there? Does it
Well,
make
he
any
hasn't even
sense?
bought it yet, and he doesn't have blueprints of what he wants to do. Why knock it down? Show us some prints that he rehab it. You know? It's a strong structure. It's been there since 1917, you know?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition?
Mr. Gary, I'd like to comment on something you just said.
Sure. And then we'll let Attorney Flood, you... wait. Okay. All right. You know, I think from the neighborhood, you folks, it's definitely a great neighborhood there. I couldn't even find it at first. It doesn't show up on anything, and there's no street sign.
Neither can the
And-
fire department.
Right, yeah.
They're within 200 feet.
Yeah, well, it is a great neighborhood. It's a mix of multifamilies. I was surprised to see how well-kept everything is down there. And it does. I mean, it looks like you're describing a gingerbread house, but it looks like a dilapidated gingerbread house. So I think you would need somebody who's willing to invest the money, to lose money, to rehab that house, at least from the way I'm looking at it. I don't know that it's to knock it down and not do anything, that doesn't make any sense. And to knock it down and rebuild on that footprint, clearly to me, with that size of a lot in the back, makes no sense at all. So it's a difficult situation, but maybe the petitioner has some suggestions, or, sir, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I just want to repeat my name, Robert Kalberg, 60 Ruth Avenue. To comment on, somebody investing money in labor, the home that I'm basically in was in pretty bad shape. I won't say it was in the same shape, but I did most of the work, but I put probably $40,000 of my own money into a home. I had an opportunity to buy this home at 0%. The right conditions were there. I think the right conditions could be there also. The people that live directly across from me, the gentleman who was a World War II vet, you talk about close neighbors. We used to help each other out to the point where we'd bring meals across the street, and we still do. It's a very, very unique neighborhood. But to comment on whether you would put the money in there, the house directly across from me, I think, was sold for $120,000. And essentially a builder bought it. But he did the same thing. He gutted the whole house completely. And he put a new roof on, put new siding. He did everything. So in the right conditions, yes, somebody would buy that home. People are looking for a bargain. You know, essentially, if somebody had the right opportunity, somebody would move in there, get it up to code, and then slowly fix it. So it's not so much getting brand new. It's like getting somebody to move in there and slowly making repairs. So my comment was, there are two neighbors directly in that neighborhood that probably invested over $40,000 to improve a home. So again, that has maybe no bearing on this, but people are willing to put some sweat equity into a place. Thank you.
And it just seems from looking at it that it's not structurally sound. I have no idea about the bones
Yeah,
of
my
it.
home, believe me,
And
I ended up taking walls out completely. Complete side of the house was all full of ants.
And sir, it's been vacant 2 to 3 years to this point.
Yeah.
No one has stepped up to this point.
Well, the home directly across the street was vacant 3 years. Norm passed away, and in the home that I lived in was the same way. It was actually vacant 2 years. So, yeah, it's, again, the right conditions for the right people. People will make the opportunity.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, George, sure.
Just for the record, George Proakes, Planning and Permitting Director for Division of Planning Development. Being that I'm here tonight to talk to you a little bit about signs when you have a moment, but I think sometimes it's worth trying to provide some background here on a couple of things, and I heard a couple people tonight from the neighborhood ask the question about the sign-off from the Historic Board Administrator, and I just wanted to clarify that to sign a demolition permit, what the Historic Board Administrator does is a very administrative process. It's looking at whether or not that particular address is in one of the 12 districts that is under their purview. In this particular case, despite the fact that this particular neighborhood actually has some historic significance as being it was built by the Massachusetts Homestead Commission in 1917, and every house built by the Homestead Commission is still in place there. It is not a district that is under the review of the local board, and therefore the Historic Board Administrator signs the permit to allow demolition of that house because the board has no purview over that. That essentially leaves the control of any historic provision as well as any other provision of the resource under the control of the zoning, and as is the case, the Zoning Board of Appeals in a case like that. That's all that basically means. It doesn't mean that he's making an opinion on its historical value or lack of value. And I know also because of his general interest in it, he went and took pictures of the inside of the building, but that's all that essentially means. I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, that does help, because I was confused as to that, too.
Yeah, that's his provision on it. I mean, basically, could it be a district? I don't know. It's possible. There is a series of intact buildings there with potential significance, but it is not today under the purview of the board, and that's all that signature means.
Thanks, George. Appreciate it. Yes, sure, ma'am.
My name is Annette Scondrus. I live at 86 Homestead Road. I guess my question is, I know the house has been vacant for a couple of years because the woman has passed away, but how long has it actually been on the market? I mean, could there be another potential buyer that might be interested in investing the money that you might not think is worth, but somebody else may think is worth?
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
What I would suggest, I think the first question that everyone has to consider is whether this is a structurally sound building. And what I would suggest is that we continue this hearing. What? Yeah. Probably continue it a month to allow us to get some sort of a structural report, and maybe Mr. Camacho can be involved in it, or his department can be involved with it. And present it to this board, because if it's not structurally sound, it's got to come down. And the second suggestion I would have is maybe we could work with the neighborhood to come up with some alternative design that maybe looks more like the house that's there, that they would be satisfied with. But if we're gonna knock it down, if it's not structurally sound, under our zoning, we have to provide for parking. And in order to provide for parking, we have to move that house back, because the frontage is only 20 feet wide. And if someone puts a car in front of it, you know, you can't do anything. So we have to do that. So I would suggest maybe that's one alternative. If I had a representative from the neighborhood that I could contact once we get a plan, and then meet with them and show them what we have, and maybe it'll be better, they'll look at it better, and
I think that's a good suggestion. Most of us are probably wondering on the board whether or not it's structurally sound, because it can answer a lot of questions and definitely help us cut to the chase here a little bit. The question is what happens if it comes back that it is structurally sound?
Well, I mean, are they willing to do something like that? I mean, if we have someone that says it's not structurally sound and it has to come down, and then we come up with an alternative plan, are you willing to consider it? I mean, I think that's the whole thing.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, you just have to speak from the podium. I know it's inconvenient, but
Attorney Flood, why would it be that the other houses are structurally sound?
ma'am, you really have to speak right from where the mic is. So
Why is it that the other houses are structurally sound?
I don't know.
We're all the same age.
Well, I guess what Attorney Flood suggests is we're gonna find out whether it's structurally sound, and then we'll go from there, and if it's not, then you can work with the neighborhood, see if they can come up with a plan. You can come back before this board, and this board makes the decision as to what you'll do.
Just one more comment.
Sure. Sure, go ahead, you got it right from the microphone, sir.
Hey, the ugly part about all this, these fellas are buying a house, they're gonna sell it. They're not gonna even live there, They're never, have any consideration with the neighbors, the way the dwelling or the area looks. We could sit here all night and say, knock it down, it's easy fixed, But I think the place could be rehabbed. It could be reconstructed. City of Lowell did, HUD did, they considered it was savable. They gotta look into it. They don't even have blueprints, they don't have plans, they just came here with pictures. They don't even own the place yet,
I mean, if he checked the filing, he would see the blueprints were submitted. We submitted a whole set of plans for that. Sir, we submitted a whole set of plans for the proposed house when we submitted to the board. So if you had gone to their office, you would have seen the set of plans that were submitted. They're in record at the building department. What I'm suggesting is we're going to get an independent person to come out and tell us whether this is structurally sound. If it's not structurally sound, I'm willing to sit down and try to redesign it in the hopes to satisfy the neighborhood. That's all we're asking.
Right, and just to clear it up, folks, if you want to see the plans before the meeting, the protocol is you go to the building department, and everything's laid out there for you, so it has been there for you to see. Right, and it's understandable, but I don't think it's fair to say that they just came in here without plans, because that's really not accurate.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Number one is, I apologize on behalf of Michael Hawkins for not coming to you guys in advance and doing it, because I thought Michael had, frankly, spoken to you folks, okay? Normally, it is our experience that we will go to the neighbors and talk to them about it. So in our reality, I thought Michael had. I'm his contractor, okay? So the reality of it is that let's back up here a little bit, you know what I mean, and look at it. Number one is, just so we're clear, we will try to sell the home for a profit, but I live in this community. I build in this community. I'm here every single day. My reputation is on the line whenever I put something up. And when I'm done, I'd like to have the neighbors in the property say, you know what? I understand you cannot please everyone. I understand you can't go back in time. I understand the smile here is nice, but the dental work is going to be significant for this one. And probably, one of the things to look at, and I don't want to back myself into a corner, quite frankly, to be honest with you, from a structural perspective. Because if a structural engineer comes in and says, look, you can do this at the cost of X dollars, then there's a certain reality to it that I cannot, at that point in time, live with. And I hope the neighbors understand that it would be an issue for anyone. So you know what? Here's what happens, okay? He does not own it as of yet, because you know what? In fairness to somebody, you go in front of these boards, you don't know what's going to happen. And but the moment if you folks would be on board with us, and what our intentions are, with a certain understanding that there's a reality here. And you know what? And the other thing is that any time anybody wants to look at any of the properties that I've ever built in this city, okay, I have built historic homes. I have done historic communities. I did Suffolk Street. If there was a historic significance and this could be taken down and look any way, shape, or form like a replica home, if there was a certain reality, look at, nobody's buying one-bedroom home, folks. I'm sorry. Two-bedroom homes. They're hard right now for us to sell. You understand the economic climate out there. So I guess you look and you weigh out these things. We're open-minded people. We want to make it, things work for you folks as well. We also would like, between now and the time that we get together, take a look at some of the stuff that we have built. I'd be more than happy to give you any information on anything that we've built in the city, so at least you know when I say there will be sod planted as the grass in the front, that I do it. Okay, if there will be a fence, if I say there's a fence, I will do it. I stake my reputation on it, so, And if it's not structurally, if it's structurally sound, but the significance of the work, you got to understand, if you've got a foundation that's collapsed in one end, in order to jack it up, and that's a reality. Maybe there would be somebody who would come along. I know it's probably not going to be Mr. Harkins, okay, that would probably move forward in that direction, frankly. Okay, so one of the realities of it is that it's just not going to be. I do this every day. It's just not going to be economically feasible for anybody. You know what? And yeah, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you turn a better profit. Today, we're working to bring these houses and these neighborhoods back into a place. Do we want to work with the neighbors? Yes. Okay? Again, I think Michael kind of, is really busy right now. He's an auctioneer. So the reality of it is with so many foreclosures and so forth, he's a busy guy. We will sit down and have a meeting with you folks. But in all honesty, we have a tremendous hardship here that the board has to understand. We have a tremendous hardship, and that's the reality of a variance when you request one. It's the hardship. So, has nothing to do with how much money you're going to make, or it has to do with the hardship itself. So if we can have an open mind going into these meetings, then we'd be more than happy to sit down and give as much as we can without it becoming, economically unsound,
I think it's a good suggestion. So why don't we? The board will have to vote on what we do, but I think that to continue. The neighbors wanted a continuance, so if there's a suggestion that it be continued, at least that's on the board. We're all wondering whether or not it's structurally sound. That's going to be determined, and we're wishing that the neighbors and the developer will speak, and that's apparently going to happen. So I think that we can't really ask for much more than that right now, other than just vote up or down on it as we sit here. So I think it makes more sense for you folks if we let the petitioner do some more due diligence and get back to us in a month. Stephanie, when is the, in about a month, is there a January 11th meeting? That's do you think December 28th?
January 11th might be better, because December 28th, some people might be away, so.
Right.
All right, and I'll call Arlene. That's your number right here, right? 405. She'll be the contact, and I'll contact her.
Sure. We've got to vote on this. Hold on one second.
Ask two questions. Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman?
Bailey had some I'm going to actually open it before we even vote, open it back up to the board for any comments after what we've just heard. So I'll start with you, Bill.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Flood, any services been cut at that site that you're aware of?
Services
Any
been cut.
utilities, water, sewer?
I think the water and sewer have been brought to the site. He knows.
And just to answer that question as to why, okay? What happens is that come November 15th, you have no choice, that you have to do
Dean,
it by then or not.
if you could just address Mr. Bailey.
So the reality of it is that the sewer service to the home has been disconnected, okay?
Has been disconnected.
Has been disconnected. The best part about it is no matter what happens, and when somebody else comes along and buys this home, if it's not us, it will be reconnected. It'll be brand new. It's stubbed off brand new onto the site, along with the water. So, and those are both a significant cost to the proposed guy here. So, and it wasn't that he was cocky or anything like that. He just did it from an economic standpoint that from November 15th on until April 15th, you cannot cut into a road. And the front of it is in disrepair and so forth in terms of bringing back the site, but the road has been paved and put back the way the city engineer said it was. So, he gave us our approval to do what we do, and we wouldn't go away if there was a problem. In fact, if there's a sinkhole or anything like that happens, we post a bond, so we have to come back and fix it. Right, so it'll happen, you know what I mean? It'll happen until we get this thing. That's how it works sometimes.
So are all other utilities
There are some still at the house. We haven't disconnected the electrical yet. We have disconnected the gas. No, excuse me. Electric was just disconnected. I was away this past weekend. It was done on last Friday. So electric and gas have been disconnected to the home.
Has the home been settled on?
Excuse me?
Has the sale?
It has not, but the proposed owner has certain rights and provisions within the purchase and sales agreement that allows him to proceed in the direction he needed to proceed. And one of the realities of it is you can't get you need sign-offs from everybody, and so in order to be able to do that, there's a certain pecking order, so you have to do kind of the pecking order in order to get to the right spot so.
Yep. And the second question I had, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Flood, the easement that was mentioned, I believe it's at 78. Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't. I have a copy of the most recent deed, and there's nothing referenced on it, so I know nothing about that. I mean, I think if they had the rights to an easement, it would have been recited in that deed.
Okay, so to your knowledge, you're not...
To my knowledge, there's no easement, no. No written easement.
And if there was an easement, would that help the situation at all? Is that a possibility?
Well, I would... I'd like to see where it is.
Sure.
It might be able to provide parking for one car, but I would think that...
I assumed it had to do with access into 82. Yep. All right, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Vesna, anything?
There may not have been a legal easement, but if you look at this is the marker for the corner of the lot. Mm-hmm. Neither house has a driveway unless they agree to share the space.
Yep. Legally, that's usually in writing.
Yeah.
Usually, so there's nothing legal.
Okay, Vesna?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do support Attorney Flood's idea of to find out whether or not the building currently is structured in terms of the structure itself is safe and sound. That certainly is going to help us tremendously in making the decision. Aside from that, I do echo earlier comment by Mr. Kavanaugh that this something need to be done with this home, and that with regard to the variance that this petitioner has certainly met the criteria, of getting this home rebuilt or rehab, but the idea of having it reassessed in terms of the structure, I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you, Mr. Flood.
Okay, Corey?
Yes, you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to say that I did go down and view the property. I spent quite an ample amount of time on site this afternoon, and as a lifelong resident of the city, I've never been down that street. And I was pleasantly surprised of the condition of the homes. You all take a lot of pride in your homes. So with that being said, I can't imagine we're all pleased the condition of this home right now. I can't imagine you are with the pride you take in your homes. And I know in my position that I'm not pleased. And what we need to understand is, this house is not going to stay vacant forever. Something is going to get done here. And I can see, as it stands right now, the neighborhood is content with it being, I believe, a two-bedroom is what it is right now. But this home was constructed pre-World War I. And from the historic story on it, it's all very interesting, but it was constructed in times where people needed room for gardening to make, obviously grow vegetables or whatnot, but this is 2009, and we need room for parking. It is a cute little home. It's an adorable little home. It really is. But my perspective here is that we have an opportunity to raise a very dilapidated home here. It's in horrible shape. I walked all around it, and Mr. Jenkins seems to have a grim outlook on the structural integrity, as do I. But again, we're no experts, and as Mr. Noon stated, I look forward to those reports that we will get. But in my opinion, it's beneficial. I mean, if we keep it a two-bedroom, we're going to have 2-3 vehicles there, a minimum of 2. If we sell it, if we fix it up currently as it is, status quo, we got a 2-bedroom home. We're going to have at least 2 vehicles there, at least. No one person is going to buy this home. We'd all be very delusional to sit here and think it's only going to be one person in that dwelling. We're looking at 2 vehicles, and they're going to have company as well, just like you or I or anybody else. And all that is going to be on street. So you think you're competing now for parking and having trouble with snow removal? It's going to get worse. It's more beneficial to me to see a 3-bedroom home set back off the street and all vehicles off the street. In my opinion, it would be beneficial to the neighborhood. Maybe not the one we have here in front of us this evening, maybe one that conforms a little more to the decorations with the neighborhood's input. Perhaps we could find a home that conforms aesthetically to the surrounding homes. But that's just my opinion, and I also think that it meets the criteria for a hardship here with the shape of the lot. It's just not really not feasible. So I hope the petitioner and the neighborhood can work together on this, and I think we'll all benefit from this. The neighborhood, as well as the new homeowner, I'm sure is going to take a lot of pride in their new home as well, just as you people. So I look forward a little over a month from now to sitting down, and hopefully we can all get a plan that's mutually beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Corey. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good from my perspective to see that the applicant is going to work with the neighbors. That's something that's important to me in voting on a variance. It's not a given to grant a variance, but there are some conditions here in terms of the shape of the lot that could be predisposed to consider that, along with some of the comments that Corey has made. So I encourage you to work with the applicant, see if you can come to a compromise position here in looking at the structure itself and potentially some alternatives. But it's important to me personally, voting on something like this, that we're looking at a variance. It's not a given, and it's really a condition to me that the neighborhood, it's in character with the neighborhood, and that the neighbors are supportive. So that's important.
Thanks, Kevin. And Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. What is the wish of the board?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think from the take I get on things is that the board is in favor of continuance, and I think gives the neighborhood, with the holidays, it slows things down, as we all know. And if we extend this into January, I think we should have a compromise either way on this matter. So with that being said, I'll make a motion to continue till January the 11th, 2010.
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and roll call, Stephanie?
Continue.
Continue.
Continue to January 11th?
Continue.
Continue.
Okay, the matter has now been continued to January 11th. There's going to be no further notices. If you folks want to look at any plans that are at the building department, I encourage you to talk to the applicant and his attorney and contractor and address the issues that we talked about. Hopefully, when you come back on the 11th, we'll have some more information.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure Mr. Jenkins will keep the neighborhood well informed throughout this matter.
Attorney Flood or Mr. Jenkins, whoever calls you, there'll be a contact person. All right? Thank you for your comments. Okay, the next petition is ZB 2008-24. Yeah, you have to go. Okay, starting again, this is ZB 2008, number 24, special permit for signs. The applicant is Attorney George Alaitis. 41 Mile Ave is the property address. This is located in a regional retail district to modify a previously granted special permit allowing for the addition of an LED facade on the existing billboard upon the state's authority for use of the same. Attorney Alaitis.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. George Alaitis Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here this evening in behalf of Splash Media. Mary Burns is the principal of that organization. And I have with me as well this evening Peter Doyle, who is the landlord of the property upon which our current sign exists. I think you're all familiar with the site. It's where Peter's family's Alpine Butcher site is. I had to get that ad in for him, Mr. Chairman, so I can make sure he's happy before he goes home tonight.
All right.
The fact of the matter is that we have started the process to come forward with, as we told you when we initially sought the special permit for the sign, that we would be hoping to go forward with an LED display that would allow us to do so many more things to help promote the city, Amber Alert, et cetera, et cetera. That's still our intention, Mr. Chairman. It's taking us a little longer time than we thought, and we have run into a bit of a dilemma, and that's one of the reasons why I'm going to request a continuance this evening. The fact of the matter is I've been made aware, as apparently the board has from previous meetings, of the fact that the City Department of Planning and Development is trying to promote some rules, regulations, and differences with references to signs in the city. I have no idea what those are, but my guess is that it might be an effort, it might in fact have an effect on what our proposal is. So on the one hand, we hate to see the rules of the game being changed on us in midstream, as they say. On the other hand, I haven't even had a chance to see them yet. And so I think, in fairness to everybody, I ought to at least have that opportunity. Let me immediately say that Mr. Proakis has been, I've reached out to him and made that request, and he's been very helpful in saying to me, yes, of course, he's willing to share that information and talk to us about that. Obviously, we intend to talk to DPD, and that was something that, about our ideas, that's something that we already intended to do and have reached out to do. I've tried to reach out and speak with Diane Tradd as well. This past week, I tried to reach Mr. Proakis and Diane unsuccessfully, but when I finally did reach Diane, Mr. Proakis was out ill, I think, this past week, which I'm sure he's going to tell you when he gets his opportunity to talk to the board later. And when I spoke to Diane, I told her the same thing. I think it's difficult at this point to go forward without knowing at least what some of the plans are that the Department of Planning and Development intends to come forward with. And of course, we want to, in general, show the DPD what our plans are with regard to the sign. So, that said, what I'm now asking the board, now that we've at this point gotten to open the hearing and at least start the process, to give us more time to meet with the city, to meet with the sign people, et cetera, et cetera. We also have what we consider a very nice presentation, which we want to make to the board. And in light of the holiday schedule, et cetera, I know there's a December 28th meeting, Mr. Chairman. I'm always a little leery about vacations and difficulties with scheduling and that, so I'm going to request that we continue this matter till January 11th. The only thing is, I would ask if we could go on the agenda before Mr. Flood and those people, but I'm being facetious, of course.
So January 11th is the date, Stephanie? That's, okay, and we only have one continuance on so far, right? Actually, yeah, one. We continued the Clear Wireless and, okay, all right. Okay, so, and we'll bring this up again on the 11th if it's approved for continuance.
I don't know if there's anyone here tonight with reference to this, or
Yeah.
Mr. Gary.
Before we take a vote, is anybody here wishing to speak at all on this petition? Any comments? If you came down here, you're welcome to speak and address the board. And hearing none, what does the board like to do?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, well, to the petitioner's credit, you are here during a transitional period, if you will, on signage. We have George behind you. We're going to discuss that at the end of the hearing. So I respect the fact that you do want to sit down with DPD and understand their new ideas and what they want to do. So with most certainly, I do want to help you on this matter. So without any objection, I'll make a continuance till January the 11th, 2010.
That's a motion?
Yes.
Second the motion.
Okay, Stephanie, roll call?
Continue.
Continue.
Continue to January 11th? He's, had left.
Continue.
Continue.
Okay, the matter has been continued to January 11th, 2010. There'll be no further notices. Anybody wishing to address the board with regard to 41 Mile Ave is welcome to attend and address the board that night. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you.
Okay, the next petition on the agenda is ZB 2008, number 17, a request for a variance. This is Acre High School LLC, 760 Merrimack Street, 20 Decatur Ave, 17 Salem Street. This is an urban mixed use, and the petitioner would like to reestablish the variances we previously granted to renovate the former St. Joe's High School to condominiums without the required parking, a land area per dwelling unit according to section 6.1.4 and section 5.1 of the zoning code. Attorney
Mr. Chairman, James Flood, 549 Roger Street, Lowell, representing Acre High School LLC. I think most of you people were on the board when we were in here in May of 2008 on our original request. Unfortunately, what happened was the variance ran out. It's only good for a year and it's expired. So we're back in here tonight for two new variances. Everything is absolutely the same. We need a variance for parking. We have 22 affordable units. We have 23 spaces. Zoning provides for 2, so we're short on that. And then we're in for variance for land area per dwelling unit. Zoning provides for 1,000. We have 890 per unit. But with me tonight is Madeline Nash. I'll go over quickly what we discussed before, and we'll be glad to answer any questions. This is the old St. Joseph's High School on Merrimack Street. What we intend to do is develop into 22 affordable residential housing units. The building would be subject to an affordable housing restriction, which would make the affordability of the project continue into the future. And the units would be available for families having income ranging from 30 to 60% of the area median income. In accordance with the plans, all of the construction would be within the existing school building at 760 Merrimack Street, and we intend to maintain the existing architectural integrity of the building, which I think is very important for the city. There'll be 6 one-bedroom units, there'll be 14 two-bedroom units, and there'll be 2 three-bedroom units. Parking, like I said, is located on the 2 lots, existing lots in the back. There are 23 spaces, and as we presented, well, on Moody Street, and we presented before, there have been studies done that there is sufficient on-street parking to support this project, and it would go for this project, too. We did that before. As to the land area per dwelling unit, the design of the units was based on the location of the windows. And based on the location of the windows in the building, we came up with 22 units. So we couldn't put a partition in the middle of a window. That's where that figure came from. This matter was heard before the planning board. There were 2 conditions which we'd ask to be incorporated again if this is approved. One was, I got it here, and I can give you a copy if you need it. Subject to concerns highlighted by the city engineer, we have to address those. And then we put a historical marker or pictures placed in the common areas of the building. I think someone wanted some pictures of the old high school put in there as the entrance coming in. But those were the conditions. But everything is the same as we discussed before. I think it's a good project for the neighborhood. It's going to provide for more affordable housing. It's going to maintain the architectural integrity of the building, and it will clean up that area.
So if the board, this is basically, there's nothing changed at all. It's just a matter of...
What happened was, and Madeline can explain, we had to go for financing through the state, and before they wanted us to get all our permits before we filed our application, which we did do. We came before this board in May, and then we filed the application. Well, the year went by without them acting on it, and they just recently approved it, so we're ready to close by the end of the month if this is approved, so everything is in place
And if we
now.
readopted every condition exactly as it's stated previously and
Right,
incorporated
everything,
that?
no change whatsoever, everything's exactly the same plan, everything.
Okay. Bill, anything?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Corey?
No, Mr. Chairman, it seems like a little financial glitch, which is seem to be resolved, so I'm anxious for this project to get going myself. Thank you very much.
Kevin?
No questions.
And Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'm sorry. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition, in favor?
I think we're a little tired, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, gentlemen. How you doing?
Hi.
My name's Dave Willett. I live at 113 Cabot Street. Lived in the acre most of my life. Went to St. Joseph's High School. I think it's a terrific idea. Will really benefit the acre area. CBA always does terrific work, and I think it's all a bonus to all of us that live in the acre. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else wish to speak in favor? Mark?
Mr. Chairman and members of the Zoning Board of Appeals, my name is Mark Oman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. I'm also on the CBA board. I spoke on this a year ago and urged that the board unanimously vote in favor of continuing this variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anybody else wish to speak in favor, sir?
Thank you. My name is Elkin Montoya. I just wanted to, as a president and representative of the board, I want to thank you for taking again the opportunity to continue building affordable housing in the acre and in Lowell in the future, in the years to come. So I thank you very much, and I'm supportive for this.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
McCoy.
Thank
you. Anything, ma'am?
I'm Madeline Nash, Real Estate Development Director for Coalition for a Better Acre, 517 Moody Street. I just wanted to say thank you for your support in the past. We're very anxious to get started with construction. It'll take about 12 months, and we know that based on our previous experience with redeveloping the former elementary school on Moody Street, we expect to have a high level of demand for the units. We had over 220 families apply for the 15 apartments at St. Joseph's Apartments back in the summer of 2008. So we expect to have a similar experience, and we're very excited about this opportunity to preserve the building and create affordable housing.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What is the wish of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second the motion.
Stephanie?
Approve.
Approve.
Approve? Gone.
Approve.
Approved.
You've been unanimously approved. Good luck with your project, and Jim, you just need to sign. Actually, if you could sign Corey's copy and give it to Stephanie. Thanks.
Something.
Okay, under other business, we have ZB 2009-11, the administrative review of a previously granted permit. The applicant is Attorney Elides, representing Gus Gothia, 28 North Street. Petitioner, like in accordance with prior condition of approval, the petitioner seeks to present the building plans to the board for the proposed construction of a single family on North Street. Attorney Elides.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, George C. Elides, Jr., 133 Market Street, Lowell. And I'm here tonight with Mr. Gus Gothia, who's that gentleman hiding in the corner there. Plumber extraordinaire, as I refer to him, in the city of Lowell. Gus's claim to fame is he's married to Rosie, who's one of the owners of the Four Sisters Owl Diner, but actually now has her own establishment in North Chelmsford Center, Rosie's Diner. And very proud of it, of her. The fact of the matter is, I should correct the record on one thing. I was told by Gus when he first approached me about this that he would be building the building, and he was correct. Only, in fact, he is actually just the builder contractor for Mr. William Curry, who's going to actually be the purchaser of this property. I don't think I have to go into the history of this property because I think this board is well aware of what's gone on in the past with reference to this. I did not represent the current owner in these proceedings previously. I did go back and look at the minutes, or not the minutes, the actual video from those meetings, so that I could get a better idea what was going on. Mr. Gauthier, on behalf of Mr. Curry, has had new plans drawn. I submitted those to as part of the package. I want to state so that we all know that, in fact, these plans are I believe, slightly different, but in any event, in conformance with what this board, I believe, wanted to do with this property. I brought them to the attention of the building commissioner, as I thought I was following the decision of the board, which was that they be in conformance with the board's approval process. And I think I'll let Mr. Camacho speak for himself, but I think Mr. Camacho indicated to me that he felt that the boards were substantially in conformance with it, but he thought it would be more appropriate for me to come back and bring the actual final plans here for the approval. As this board well knows, and I've seen so many times in the decades past, quite often in situations where variances and permits are granted, the applicants pick an off-the-shelf house because they're not the ones who actually are going to build the house itself. And I think that's exactly what happened here. There was an off-the-shelf or out-of-a-book picture. The applicant now, the current prospective purchaser, has gone to no small expense, as you can see, to have Gavin and Sullivan produce some actual plans. I just want to point out a few highlighted aspects of it. Number one, it's the exact same footprint of the plan that was submitted and approved to you, with the one exception being that it has the addition of a small farmer's porch on the front, which I think is an amenity that really helps the appearance of this particular property and makes it even better. In addition to that, the house has 2 stories, and if you would look at, I assume you've seen the materials that I submitted, I spent some time going through the assessor's records for every house on that street, and I made that available to you. I want to point out, I think, some salient points that come out of that survey that was done, and that is that the average lot size for the other lots is 2,630 square feet. This particular lot is the largest lot on the street, being 6,439 square feet. It's 245% larger than the average lot size. It's even 50% large, 57% larger than the next largest lot on the street. There are, as I indicated in my summary here, 7 houses that are 2.5 stories high, another 4 that are 2 stories high. So that means that of the 13 houses currently there, 11 of the 13 are at least 2-story high. And I thought it was kind of interesting when I was listening to the previous matter that came before the board. Mr. Gauthier said to me that Mr. Curry can't build a 2-bedroom house that would economically sell. And I'm quite certain I heard this gentleman say the identical thing. Today, people don't want to buy a two-family house. So I certainly, as I said, I have Mr. Gothia here to answer any questions you have. I think this is very consistent with the neighborhood. I made copies of the pictures that are in the assessor's map. I know the board has been out to see the neighborhood anyway as well. We'd like to build a house there so we can get some tax revenue for the city and put this matter to bed once and for all. So I think it might be, I don't know if Mr. Camacho wants to, I'm sure the board will be checking with him anyways, but as I indicated, I'm glad to answer any other questions, but I would hope that we can get going and buy this property and build this house, and I would ask you to so indicate.
Okay, Bob, this is the same footprint and everything as the previous granted?
Yes, with the exception of the front porch. I checked with the file, and it appears there are basically 3 conditions set forth in this, and the only one that said, one was regarding parking. The second condition was regards to if the property ever got conveyed to the deed to protect that parking between the 2 properties. Those seem to be pretty clear cut. The third one, any single home constructed. The biggest issue here is not so much the porch. It is on the front. It is on the same footprint. Is that they are creating a second story. Other than that, they seem to be in compliance and with the conditions and the intent of what the board dictated at that particular meeting.
Okay, there's no variance required for the farmer's porch?
No, they meet all the setbacks. There's no question. We've already reviewed that.
So the front porch is just aesthetics. It doesn't mean anything as far as
Correct.
It didn't have any impact. We didn't grant a variance for the farmer's porch because it didn't need one.
Well, there was no farmer's porch originally, but even under this particular plan, it meets the necessary setbacks.
And this doesn't change anything?
No, the only thing it does is that what we really didn't pick up on the last meeting was that there's 2 parking spots, and one car is parked directly in front of the house. This is a single-family home, and in this particular district, I believe they allowed stack parking because it is a single family.
Mm-hmm.
So they would have to relocate that second car to the side of the house, so that, because the front of the house has to, I believe 50% of it has to be landscaped. If they put the car there, they won't be able to meet that restriction. But I think they can modify that, so that shouldn't be an issue.
We can, and I'm glad the commissioner mentioned that, because the one big thing I also neglected to mention here is, and the board I think is well aware of that. What this board very smartly did, if I may say, is they required the current owner of the property to give an easement for 2 parking spaces, or retain an easement for 2 parking spaces on her current single, what she's using as a single family house, but it actually qualifies as a pre-existing non-conforming 2-family, so it really could continue to operate with 2 spaces. By imposing the extra 2 spaces on, this board has in fact guaranteed that should that house ever become a 2-family again, there will be enough parking to meet the parking requirements. So in addition to everything else you've done, there will be not a single extra car. Not only there will not be a single extra car added to the street, but you've provided that 2 cars, if there's a 2-family usage for the other one, will get off the street and be on that other property.
Okay. All right, Bill, anything?
I hate to ask about the parking, but I guess I gotta. So not including the easement for the 2 parking spots, at number 28, is the parking only on the right-hand side of the new construction and there's 1 in front? I get confused with that.
That was the approved plan, 1 on the side, 1 on the front. But in reviewing the zoning regulations for that district, half of the front of the property has to be landscaped. That front vehicle, that parking spot, can be relocated legitimately to the right of that house and still be in compliance.
Right, so weren't we going to have like stacked parking on the right-hand side?
That's what they would ultimately need,
2
yes.
2 spots or 3?
2.
2, okay. and then there's the easement on the other side of the property for two.
Correct.
For two more.
For number 26.
Correct.
That's correct. And the parking on the right side, by the way, it meets the necessary setbacks of 3 feet
Yeah,
from
I
the building.
couldn't
from there.
remember if it was 2 or maybe even 3. I forget what the,
I think there
how
was
it
2
was
for the
set up.
house on the right, and
Pardon me? I
there were
didn't hear
2
that.
parking spots for the house on the right, and the one on the left, I think there were with the easement.
The one on the left, there are going to be a total of 4 spaces stacked, 2
but
and
that
2.
easement for the 2 turning ladies, is that for 26 or is it for 28?
It's actually, the current owner owns both parcels.
Correct,
She, when she sells the property, is mandated by the condition that this board put on, that she give an easement over the property on 26, the now vacant lot, for the benefit of 28. That will become a permanent record and a permanent easement for
Right.
the property at 26.
At 26?
Yeah, the
We're
benefit-
still left with 2 at 28.
And they'll still have 2
And
at
that's all
20.
required for 28.
Correct.
And do most of the homes on that street, do they have, I know it's kind of a mixed bag.
A lot of them do
parking.
not have parking, but
There is no street parking, correct? I don't think there is there?
legally or in
Well-
fact. I don't think legally there is, but I'm not certain of that.
I've seen cars parked on the street. Now, whether they belong there legally or not during the day, I'm not sure.
So during snow removal, they get moved somewhere, right?
Right. But we're not putting any cars in the street.
Yeah. And two is the requirement for the,
Correct.
For 20, that's correct. Yeah.
okay, I'm all set, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Corey?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chairman. So just so I can clarify things here, so basically, we're on the same footprint that we approved months ago, okay? And we're adding another floor. How many bedrooms did we approve originally? I don't have that
2
information.
was what was discussed. Mr. Bienvenu asked a good question at the time as to whether or not the board could limit that, limit the number of bedrooms. It's my opinion they can't, but that's just one man's opinion. I don't think 40A allows for numbers of bedrooms. But, you know, the other point that I think is so clear here is that 2 bedrooms doesn't guarantee number of occupants. 3 bedrooms does. You can have 3 bedrooms occupied by 1 person and 2 bedrooms occupied by 2, 3, or more. So it's not a question of saving the number of occupants.
Okay,
Mr.
I understand.
Valenti.
Well, how many bedrooms are we, is the new drawings going to have, the rendition? Are we going up to 3 or 4 bedrooms now?
The new drawing's 3 bedrooms.
3 bedrooms, so going from a
Correct.
2 to a 3,
Right.
basically, okay. Well, I mean, this petition's been around, this thing has had more sequels than Rocky movies. But with all due respect, I have to ask you, Mr. Alaides, is this final? Is this the final?
I hope so. As far as we are concerned, the buyer, that's what we're going with.
I hope so myself. Okay, that's all I have to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Okay. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know there was a great debate on this property. One of the things that I was in favor of was a small house here. The original house was largely 1 story, I think, with 2 bedrooms. So I guess we're not affecting the parking, which was the biggest concern. But it is a bigger house.
Can I just make a comment about that, to Mr. Kavanaugh's issue? A very good point. Those of us who are old enough to have a little ancient history can tell you that what was once on that lot was a 10, believe it or not, 10-unit building. So we're certainly not, in that sense, if you're looking at the historical aspect of it, changing the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Rick?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I need a motion. I'm sorry, anybody here wishing to speak in favor of this petition, in favor? And hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition of this petition, and hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. And need a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second the motion.
Roll call, Stephanie?
Approve.
Approve.
Approve the modification?
Approve. Approved.
Okay, Attorney Gladys, you've been unanimously approved. If you can come up and sign this plan.
I sure will.
And hand that, if you could sign it and date it and hand it to Stephanie. Good luck. Okay. The next issue is we do have scheduled a review with George Parekis from Planning and Development regarding the development of the new sign code that we've been waiting to hear about. Just to bring everybody up to speed, we met a month and a half ago, I believe, and we got a good start as to where we're going with the changing the sign ordinance and how we're going to streamline the petition process. So hopefully George can shed some more light on that for us today.
Pass out a couple more things we have been working on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been making slow but steady progress on this process, and what I'm providing for you tonight, if you hopefully have it, is 3 items. One is a stapled sheet, and then in between is a single sheet of paper, and then there's another stapled packet behind that. The very first item in your package is the exact same item I handed out at the September meeting, and that's just for your information in case you don't still have a copy of it with you tonight. And what this goes over is basically where this process started and kind of some of the concerns that led to the discussion this past summer about reviewing the sign code and some of the potential solutions to addressing some of those problems. Then we went forward and I proposed a new purpose statement and special permit standards for signs, the table of contents for a proposed new sign ordinance. There was a page in there for sort of scribbling notes on. The last page showed a sample of a sign table for a neighborhood business district. The essence of changing the code was one of a few ideas that were in the potential solutions page on page 2, which included addressing the code's concerns about intent for neighborhood character, addressing the technological gaps between our existing code and the existing technologies for signs, and addressing the impact of signs on different streetscapes and different zoning districts. What still remains to be addressed include the ZBA application materials and fee schedule. My hope is to come back to you again in the foreseeable future, and it may be what makes the most sense is to come back sometime in the new year with a draft ordinance that could actually be brought jointly to the zoning board and the zoning subcommittee of the city council, or potentially to the subcommittee and then the board, or in whatever order we all feel works best and is most comfortable. And what I want to show you today is some elements of what that ordinance might look like. The single sheet of paper is an attempt to capture 5 comments that came back from the board last time, which I want to make sure get into that ordinance. One is adjusting the purpose and the special permit standard to include an impact on business, on the business in question, and an impact on the community as a whole as part of the permit criteria. The second is creating a staff-level review process to help the board address conditions of approvals, potentially have even some sort of sign review sub-board to try to formalize a little bit more what you get back. The third is a point was made that sometimes we recommend denial, and all our recommendation says is denial, and that we would try through this review process to recommend denial. In a case where we recommend denial, to also recommend conditions under which it could be approved if you proceed to decide to do that. The fourth is reviewing circumstances where public service messages could be a part of the conditions of special permits on electronic signs. And the fifth is ensuring that any applicant who changes the face of a sign can do so with an administrative design review without necessarily having to come back to the board. Did I capture?
Yeah, can I make one suggestion?
Sure,
I think we did touch upon it last time we talked about this, but I think from the board's point of view, the problem that we're faced a lot, just in an initial stage, is that there's an application for a variance or special permit for a sign. It comes to us, and the night of the meeting, dated the day of the meeting, we get a comment from the sign director saying, denial and, not a lot of detail.
Right.
I understand you're busy, but I guess my question is, if we could get that done sooner and get it to the applicant, because it does no good for the board. You see what happens here tonight.
Right.
If we get it, and then the applicant's attorney comes to the stand and at the podium, and they're presenting the petition, and we say, oh, have you seen this yet? Now there's an interruption in the flow of the meeting, and we're putting the attorney or the applicant at a distinct disadvantage, because now they have to read, absorb, digest, and respond to a comment that they didn't have in advance, that they could have very well easily have had in advance. And then, it's frustrating from our point of view. So I know we talked about that, and I know you're I think your response was you're in transition to trying to get somebody hired.
We have hired a new design planner who will be coordinating this process, and our hope is that that person would actually coordinate a scheduled time to sort of have the staff look at, because she's going to take some time to get up to speed, but Diane's done a lot of these. So what seems to make the most sense is to schedule a time that offsets from your meeting schedule in such a way that we can look at these, she can prepare some comments, and that we can have them scheduled to get back at a time frame that allows the response time necessary to be able to react to that.
Right. Does it make any sense to you that anything that we get for the board, the applicant should also get?
Yes, oh, absolutely, and on many occasions when the applicant has been in touch with Diane, like even the case today, I believe she, in the comment letter I think we gave you on 41 Mile just says we look forward to meeting with them, but we forwarded that to Attorney Elides at the same time as we forwarded
Good,
it
that's
to you.
all, and just that's enough right there.
That in itself helps us a lot. When we know who the applicant is and how to get in touch with them quickly, we try our best to do that. A number of the sign companies are pretty good at reaching out to us before the meeting because they know the letter's coming now, and they want to have that feedback ahead of time. But we're trying to formalize that process. I actually think one of the things that will help with that, and hopefully that we can bring back in the next package as well, is a little bit of a different application form for signs, which is separate from the typical zoning board application form. We can work with the building department on. What that would allow us to do is make sure that the particular items we need are in that application packet, because a lot of times the comment back from us is there's not enough information here to figure out what's going on. So by providing some very specific requirements that sign companies will understand that are specific to signs, we can also make sure that we're not giving back a lot of back and forth, but we actually have a complete application that we can, on signs that include the things that we need to look for. To be able
and
to
maybe a
find.
mandatory email address where if you get it that morning, you just push a button and they have it a minute later, rather than sending it or faxing it, or I just think if it's one that works, and you make sure before they connect to you, you connect to them, and then the minute we get it, you get it. So I just think that's not only just with signs, but all our that's a frustrating point with all our petitions, that the attorneys don't get it from the planning board, and no fault of the planning board or anything. It's just that's the way the process is right now.
Right.
And if we get it, they should get it when we get it. And we shouldn't get it the night of the meeting.
No, and simply put, having an email address on the application form and having the opportunity to do that is a very easy solution to address those sort of things. So, that makes sense. As we are into formalizing a new code, we can use that as the opportunity to formalize a new process going forward that works better with this code to address those particular concerns. I think one of the other things that we hope to accomplish through this process, as we've discussed in the past, is have the code itself be more clear about what we want and don't want, so that hopefully the comments are less of a surprise to people than they are today. When the code says, "Oh boy, I can do all these things," and you come in with an application,
right?
And
That's
the
the
original
point.
reaction is, well, the community really doesn't accept that as a standard that we want, and it's like, well, the code says it's okay. It doesn't reflect the standard in the community.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I think the good point that was raised was a separate application, number one, but number two, maybe a preliminary meeting with DPD, George, would be great, because all often not, we receive the correspondence the day of, and again, no fault of anybody's, that's the current procedure, and then it happened tonight with Splash Media, and they're more than willing to sit down with DPD, but I'd like to see a separate application, or maybe a small preliminary meeting with DPD, and that way it'll be fine-tuned by the time it gets here, rather than them coming here and us sending them back to you, which seems to be what's going on lately.
Well, we can potentially do is set up a kind of offset schedule from your schedule, at which point we would be regularly scheduling people to come in and talk to the design planner. Having somebody who's her main job is doing park planning, as it always has been, but having someone who has some portion of her time dedicated to doing this really helps, makes this a lot easier than it has been more recently. Diane's basically been doing 3 jobs for the last 2 years. And
No, I know, and
that's-
I know you hired somebody, and that person went somewhere else right away, so.
Yep, we did that. We hired someone. He left after 6 months. We barely got him up to speed on this stuff, and then it's another 5 months to find somebody. But we
Right.
have her on board. I feel more confident than ever that she's in for the long term here, so we're going to work with her, and we can make this happen.
Okay.
The last handout is not a, it is not a sign code per se, but it is a structure for being able to establish how this code can work. And on the top of it are 3 sheets of paper that are essentially, they read like spreadsheets of sorts. And what they're designed to do, and we talked a little bit about this last time, is to establish a single page that describes for you what you can and cannot do in any zoning district. So you pull a page, neighborhood business zoning district, you have 2 categories up at the top on sign types, allowed sign types and prohibited sign types. And it just lists those types. Now, what this allows us to do that's kind of interesting, and this is just a draft, and I've just begun to scratch the surface on what you can do with this, with how you can address this in certain ways. But for example, first of all, under the allowed sign types, you can identify which ones are special permit by just placing SP next to those particular types, and those would go to the board. But you can also be more specific. For instance, within a regional retail district, certain streets are wider than others and have faster traffic and faster speed limits. You actually could set a standard in, for example, in the regional retail sign type, where, for example, a pole sign could be a certain size on a 40-mile-an-hour street and a different size on a 30-mile-an-hour street based upon the condition of that particular street in that particular circumstance, so that you can guide the sign type to really be right for the conditions under which it occurs. I haven't done that in this draft, but it's very possible to do that. So there's allowed and prohibited on the top, and then there's a series of notes, and you can create notes for different types, and you can create additional specific standards. Then on the bottom are 2 other categories, sign illumination and sign copy. Each sign basically falls into each of the 3 categories. It has a type. Sometimes it may even be more than one type, the way it's defined, but it has a type, and you can look up whether or not that type is allowed. You also have a category of illumination, either not being illuminated or being externally illuminated or being a beacon light or any of a number of different types. And then it has a copy type, which clearly then delineates the different types of messages, whether they be static, moving, manual changing, where you flip letters around, or the electronic message center. And then I put a separate category for fuel price signs that have a similar manual or electronic type. And then, so I did neighborhood business, I did regional retail, and I did the core residential districts of the city. And I guess if you look through it, what you'll see is neighborhood business has a balance on both sides of the column, which I kind of expect. Regional retail has a lot of things on the allowed list and not many things on the prohibited list. And all of the major ones, the projecting signs, the roof signs, the portable signs, the drive-through signs, are special permit. Actually, probably the pole sign and monument sign should be special permit over a certain size as well. But you can clarify that, and we can clean this up to make that work. And then the residential district, you'll see the types of signs that are allowed, things like an address sign or a historic plaque or a contractor sign or an election sign, while there's a whole bunch of other things like pole signs, inflatable signs, drive-through signs that aren't allowed in those districts. Similarly, for illumination and copy, it follows a similar pattern. Internally illuminated is in neighborhood business districts, the way I've drawn it up here, is limited to the letters on a dark background. It's a very it allows internal illumination, but it's kind of a subtler internal illumination. Regional retail allows by special permit just about every type of illumination that you could want to do. And then the single-family districts don't allow illuminated signs. And then you go back to the copy. One of the things that's particularly interesting is the electronic message center is special permit in the regional retail district. It's not allowed in the neighborhood business or the residential districts. That kind of followed the pattern. One of the flaws of the existing code is neighborhood business and regional retail are in the exact same category right now, and they're treated exactly the same, despite the fact that if you compare a Couple Square to a Chelmsford Street, they're 2 completely different characters of places. So that's one of the reasons why splitting these out by district like this accomplishes something. And then the 14 pages that follow, which I don't expect anyone, take home and think about, is basically the definition of each sign type, each sign copy, each sign illumination, followed by underlying standards, and in some cases, specific standards for special permits, if special permits were to be granted for those types of things. And all of this is draft language. It's based upon kind of a review of our code, a review of other codes. It makes sure that nothing comes out of our code that's there today. It protects what we can protect, and it addresses particular answers and questions about kind of what questions should be asked. If I'm going in for a special permit on a particular type of sign, like for example a pole sign, there are standards for how tall it can be, the size of each face, but maybe you decide you want to allow a pole sign in a different district but be smaller. You can add that to the notes for that district. And then it explains what those are. And then in particular cases, there are a few, let me see if I can find them, that actually have specific standards for special permits where special permits would be triggered for them. So it says something to the effect of, it's particularly, internally illuminated is a good example under the sign illumination, which is these are not numbered. It's the fourth to last page. The title on the top says sign illumination, definition and standards. Number 3 is internally illuminated. And then it says internally illuminated signs shall be allowed by special permit where the following criteria have been met to the satisfaction of special permit granting authority. So then number 1 is the criteria under the zoning ordinance for special permits. But then there are a series of others: not detrimental in the neighborhood, not create a distraction to residential properties, not significantly impact the visibility of other signs on abutting properties, not have a color scheme or style that distracts from focus on the road, and establishes economic reasons that the internally illuminated letter sign below is not adequate to meeting the advertising needs. The idea is if you can illuminate just the letters instead of the whole sign, you should at least look into the reason why you could do one or the other. So that's kind of a potential draft language. And that gives you the concept that the code, which the basis of the code would probably look a lot like our existing code, but it would be built around this new basics of how you kind of identify a sign type, and then these new pages based upon individual zoning districts that give you direction on how to do that, and then that combined with the application form and some of the other pieces is designed to help establish how all of this is going to work. Now, I will address very quickly one other question that has come up very recently, and that is the standards for the electronic message center sign, which is the very last page of that sheet, has a draft of that. And you'll see that half of the draft is highlighted with big question marks on it and stuff and not really clarified. The original proposal that we went to the council with, actually the DPD's original recommendation to the city council when this issue first came up was not to allow any more electronic message signs in Lowell. We got a pretty clear read from the council subcommittee that they weren't comfortable with that solution. So we stepped back from that and we looked at allowing them in regional retail districts and some of the districts that are more automobile oriented, and then looking at the types of conditions that have been placed upon those signs where they have been done elsewhere. We looked at size, we looked at message rate, we looked at movable copy. A lot of signs have a lot of sort of flashing animation on them right now. We looked at seeing if there was a standard by which we could just make them static messages that change. We had a conversation I think I had with a number of people recently about that even if we did do this, we probably can't change the existing signs because some of them are actually designed to be, they're designed with small reader boards, so they have to have movable copy so that you can read things, but in the future you could do ones with a big enough board that you could have static changing messages. And because some concern had been expressed and discussed at the subcommittee meeting about the more vibrant colors, about doing a standard that basically would limit them to a single color on a black background. That last item led to a significant discussion with the proposal at 495 Chrysler Jeep that came before you a couple of weeks ago. They met with us. We had a long discussion about it, and I think where we left that discussion is being that we felt as if this range of standards was what we had presented to the council subcommittee, we didn't feel, and that was based upon their wanting us to find a way to be able to allow these things in the district. We didn't want to go back and endorse to you the idea of approving a sign that wasn't consistent with those standards at that point in time. But nonetheless, Barlow Signs made some very interesting arguments as to why in some cases the full color signs can actually be less of an impact than the single color signs if the circumstances are right. So based upon that, I think that requires another discussion with what is likely to now be a different zoning subcommittee and a different council. But nonetheless, reopening that discussion to see what the council's perception is of where they want some of that to go. Obviously, I want to know what the zoning board's position is on where they want to go on that as well. You know, I know the opinions in DPD range from sort of balancing this right to not allowing them at all to having certain districts where we do as much of it as we possibly can and make them vibrant, bright, lit-up districts. But, you know, all of those ideas have sort of been discussed, but there's been no conclusion on all of that. And I know one of the reasons why I don't want to lose much time on this is I know we're sort of leaving applicants in the middle of this debate who are looking to move forward, and this is one of the reasons why technology and signs has a way of sort of creeping on you while you're doing these sort of codes. So that's kind of, that's the extent of where we are today. So I sort of look to your feedback and opinions on that going forward.
So part of what we talked about last time, George, was and I think it's in here as in your draft, that some signs, the very minor requests aren't going to have to come before the board, or things we talked about, CVS changing to something else, or, you know, where people have to spend money, take the time out of the board, come here, and it's really just they come up, it's the exact same thing, and
there's a section of this that has not been written yet, which is basically a process section. I mean, what I've written is a definition section and a table, basically. If you look at the proposed table of contents, the proposed table of contents basically has some underlying standards in terms of applicability and special requirements. And what I would do probably is build that into the special requirements section. What I would probably recommend in a case like that is a building department safety review followed by a sort of staff level meeting to discuss the aesthetic design of the sign, followed by the ability to just basically let those go if, as you have indicated, you're not interested in having small businesses who, you know, change from one name to another, go through the expense of a special permit.
that's just my feeling. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but that's...
It's very easy to do that. If that's what you're looking for, we can do that.
What do you think, Bill? I mean...
Well, I noticed a couple of things here on the sign code challenges you have, and you talk about the State Zoning Act.
Yes.
And you talk about grandfathering. So does that mean anything that we've approved to date is grandfathered?
That, yes, amongst other things, yes, anything that you've approved to date, and as well as anything that was done before regulations were in place to even allow you to approve it to date, is essentially grandfathered. You can, by moving sign codes into general ordinances, there are ways to undo grandfathering, but I would proceed with a lot of caution on doing that, only because you really have to be careful about the investment that someone made, particularly if we talk about someone who's invested in an electronic message sign very, very recently based upon an approval. Even if that particular type of sign ends up not being allowed, I would be reluctant to encourage the city council to use a general ordinance to just basically shut off the ability to use them just because of the investment type. That said, there appears to be ways to do that and the ability to do that if people want to. But essentially, yeah, the concerns with the Zoning Act, there is the ability to move signs out of the Zoning Act into a general ordinance, and it potentially has allowed some communities some benefits. I'm still trying to figure out whether or not there would be benefits to Lowell to doing that. One is it lets you control grandfathered signs a little bit better if you want to. You know, it's not necessarily something that we necessarily would need to do. The other thing is there's just some weird nuances of the way that the zoning code affects, for example, exempt properties. Like there's regulations that no zoning ordinance can impact certain schools, daycares, other things. If you take the sign code out of zoning and put it into a general ordinance, you may have more control over a sign at an otherwise exempt use. So that gives you a little bit more flexibility. I've shipped that question up to the law department, and I'm waiting to hear their perceptions on it.
Well, I think the challenge for this board has just been continuity of application. It seems like, you know, we're always put in a position that you feel like you're doing the right thing, but then on the flip side, you're not sure if you are doing the right thing. And it seems like between the board and the applicant, there's a lot of time and effort invested in. I'll be frank, with some of these signs, I think we spend way too much time debating them, and you can argue against it or for it all day, and it seems like at the end of the day, you feel like you did the right thing, but others, there doesn't seem to be any continuity, there doesn't seem to be any, like we talk about the master plan, and, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Things should
absolutely.
things should be from start to finish, should make sense to everybody, so that there isn't a lot of questions.
My hope is that, yeah, that a new ordinance would at least provide people better direction before they even apply as to what the expectations are. A review process with us ahead of the meeting may be able to iron out some of the challenges so that you are presented with a more complete package as an application, hopefully a complete package with support, so that if there isn't significant abutter opposition, the process for you is much easier than it is today.
Well, it's like an
my
argument
hope.
between being business friendly and being aesthetically friendly. I mean, you know,
Yep.
you can't have everything, but there has to be some type of decision-making that is
Right.
consistent and makes sense.
And the biggest challenge with being business friendly when it comes to signs is actually making sure that you don't approve something so outrageous for one business that it then causes every other business on the street to have to invest in the same level of outrageousness to be as noticeable as they were before. So that's where, if you can kind of hold the line of what you want and establish a standard, and there are some areas where our standards are, make it, you know, everything, you know, some of our regional retail districts, like let's say you start a business out on Rogers Street right now. I mean, in fairness to 495 Chrysler Jeep, you need a sign variance to be noticed around everything else that's out there right now, because our existing standards are so small for that district, as opposed to some of our neighborhood business districts where the standard's exactly the same, yet it's basically supposed to be a walkable little neighborhood street. So, you know, we're not sending messages with the code as to what people want, so they just basically kind of look at what's around them and guess, and that's why you're getting the applications you're getting.
Anybody else, Corey?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think, we're well on our way here. It's a slow process, I understand, but I do like the concept of setting this into districts, SMU, regional retail and whatnot. I think that will work out nicely, along with a new application and a preliminary meeting. And, you know, I mean, this is myself, I don't know how bottom line it's going to come down to the City of Lowell Zoning Subcommittee, Council.
And the City Council as a whole, yeah.
Yes, and the City Council, and but myself, I mean, I'm pro-business, and we're here to help businesses, and you know, I am for LEDs to an extent in regional retails like automobile-related neighborhoods, which 495 is not out of the realm of what they're requesting. I think it's a good alternative to cheap, cheesy banners and streamers and stuff like that, and it can be done nicely if it's done right. So I'm anxious to see how this progresses, and I'm willing to help along the way on this.
And actually, Corey, one of the interesting discussions that started in our office was potentially, and this is one of the things you can do that's very nice on this. For example, you could actually put a note with the signed copy on an electronic message center saying that if you have an electronic message center on your site, you're not allowed to have any banners or something like that, so that the trade-off for the message center. Now, you can do that through conditions right now.
It would be in replace of, yes.
You know, that way, say, you know, that's if you get this, you know, all of the other clutter comes down.
I totally agree with that, absolutely.
And that's one potential solution.
That's exactly where I was going, George, is a trade-off on overall signage. I think, thinking about, I don't have specific recommendations at this point, but when you look at the list, it looks like a real shopping list. I know there are limitations on individual signs and sizes, but some guidance on the aggregate amount of signage on a site or trade-offs like that, I think would be helpful to think about. The other comment I would make or suggestion to think about, if we're thinking about new technology and signage, interactive signs. I think that's coming. You've got LED, organic LED signs. You've got location-aware signage now based on people with GPS phones. So thinking about what we do with interactivity. I don't see it on large signs, but there are billboards that have that will recognize cars that go by for things like that. So.
I've been reading a little bit about that. It's been very interesting.
I'm a technologist, so I'm aware of it.
What do you mean by interactive signs?
Signs that can literally, I forget the car company, but there was one car company, and basically can detect, you can put a beacon in a car or a cell phone with a GPS location base. You get close enough to a sign, it can recognize you if you give it permission and say, hi Steve, nice to see you today, right? And they did that with cars, and the car would go by a billboard, and it would actually acknowledge the particular brand of car.
It's a process that actually will allow an LED sign or billboard to tailor its particular message based upon who or what is going by, or the demographics of the people going by, or something like that, and it can make adjustments to the message that's on the particular sign.
Yeah, there's a lot of data available and a lot of interactivity that's possible, at least.
I didn't know that technology existed. Maybe Splash Media can do that with every car coming along Route 3. Right.
Those are my thoughts.
Rick, anything?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to George. On number 5, George, we talked about the size of the signs. If you had a 6x6 square sign, and you had a new business going in there, and it went from, Jill's to Tom's, all they have to do is go back into the building department and say, it's still the same square footage, just a different name. I know you want to put administrative review on it. Would that be through the building department, or would that just be through the DPD or the zoning officer? I mean, we get them now because that's the way the verbiage was put up. I can't remember when, and for any changes on any signs, even if it's 6 feet for 6 feet, it still comes in front of this board.
My suggestion there was to have the building department and the design planner look at it. And the only reason to have the design planner look at it is just because sometimes, particularly with the internally illuminated, the original signs are sometimes approved because they're light lettering on dark backgrounds, and the lettering is only a very small percentage of the illumination. And if someone goes to switch out the face with the same lighting behind it, it's just worth taking a look at making sure that they're not actually making a significant change to that. And if it's something that's straightforward and looks good, then you go forward with it, and it's not a problem. I think one of the easy ways to do an administrative review in a process like that is to have a kind of a standard of basically no greater detriment. Give the building commissioner and the design planner some authority to understand that standard, and if for some reason there's a feeling that it is exceeding that standard, then you can kick it back to the zoning board. But as long as the applicant presents something that everyone is comfortable did not exceed that standard, it can be administratively done with a building permit, and they change the sign and they move on. So that seems to be one potential way to do it. It's still just gives you a little check on making sure that something doesn't get wildly outrageous immediately, but at the same time it ensures that the applicant is not spending money on abutters notices and hearing notices to come to a meeting where nobody is going to show up and complain about it, and the sign is exactly the same, and you're going to look and say, why are we all here?
Yeah, for a simple refacing, which I think Mr. Bienvenu was talking about, an existing sign.
I think that's being on the enforcement side of this. I think what's really key to make that work, and I agree, is to make sure that the conditions are as explicit as possible, as they possibly can be, so that when we look at something, it's relatively easy to interpret, whatever that means. That'll help us enforce that, and that'll help stop people coming back here for simply changing the face. When one of the things we do now, if there's a sign up there that's not internally illuminated or something, they come up for a permit to do whatever, one of the first things we do is to check that if they needed a special permit back when, that permit is in place. If it's not, then they have to come to the board and get the special permit. So, but I think the conditions the board set forth, if they could be made as clear as possible, it'll help us make it easier for everybody to try and enforce that down the road.
Yep, I agree.
There's the comment that the chairman made with regards to email. Is that email addresses? Is that something that we should be looking at putting on the application, the ZBA application?
I think so. I just think that when people appear before the board for the first time, and whether sometimes if they have an attorney, it's easy to get their fax number and fax, if we get them in advance, some recommendations, but I think every applicant's entitled to see the the recommendations or the comments from any department or the planning board prior to the meeting, because otherwise it's almost like they're, you just kind of throw it on them and they don't have.
I agree, and I think
they come in, they're blindsided.
If we isolate one particular spot, an email address for us to send them something.
Right, we can even put, email address to receive recommendations and comments from various departments prior to the meeting. You have to verify that works, and if they're swamped, So it's not their fault, but the minute they get it, if they get it, they hit a button, and, you know, if it's 4:45 and they get it, it's a lot better than if they get it at 6:15 or 6:35 after the meeting started, when everybody's there and they're at the podium and they have to read it, you know, digest it and respond to it.
It makes it difficult, yeah. I
It
agree.
does, and it makes it harder for us, because then 90% of results in a continuance. Because they see it, oh, we'll do this, let's get a continuance, and that backs up our docket. And, you know, I just think it's such a simple thing to do. But that's nothing to do with the signs, that just came up, and I think it's a good idea.
But I think it would spill over to the signs down
Yep.
the road, and I just
Yep.
think it would help expedite things pretty quick, give people like you say, a chance to look at what's there and a chance to respond to it.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's, you know, I know we talked about this months ago.
I think what we'll do is we'll look at finding a slot on the application specifically for an email address would be appropriate.
Great, yeah, I think that would help, and with the signs especially. But I think this is good, George. I think this is, so we're getting closer and closer every time. So when would you like to talk about it some more?
Well, what I can probably have to you by the end of December is a draft ordinance. I could then distribute it to you and distribute it to the council. It's up to you if you would like me to come back and present that to you. I can do that before that process. I can circulate it to the council subcommittee. We can do it at the same time. It really depends upon what.
I think I think the standards are going to be set by the sign zoning subcommittee and the city council overall, and our job is to look at it, give input as to how it affects us in the approval process. I don't know that we're really part of the, you know, rewriting the ordinance and what our input to that means, except procedurally, how we make the decisions.
Well, certainly, you've got to live with whatever comes out of this, and, you know, one thing I can definitely do is ensure that you're aware of when subcommittee meetings are meeting on this. What'll probably end up happening with the version of this ordinance that I send to the subcommittee is there will be certain sections of it, like, for instance, the electronic message board standards, that will be sort of highlighted with options, and then we'll probably, although the subcommittee can discuss anything in the ordinance, we'll probably be focusing a lot of attention on the particular options and the trade-offs and what those will mean. As soon as I've got that direction, I can package together something that can send to the council, and even before it gets approved, at least then you have an idea of what's coming as it relates to some of the applicants that are coming.
Right, or
forward.
maybe we
So-
can say, you know, if you change this a little bit, it's going to help us in the approval process. So
Yeah.
if we could get those even a little bit in advance, that'd be great.
Well, let's, yeah, I mean, if you want, I can try to get them to you in mid-December. If you are interested in my participation, I mean, I know you have that December 28th meeting. If you do, you know, I potentially could probably, I have to check my schedule to see, but I think I could.
But there's a new subcommittee that's going to be put on in January, or?
Yeah, I think what'll happen is we'll have a new mayor who will then present a new subcommittee, and then we've got to figure out who those folks are and try to get them to meet as soon as we possibly can. And the reason the reason I'm anxious to do it quickly and get a response out of that subcommittee is because I also don't want to leave your applicants sort of in this limbo state that they're in right now, where they don't quite know.
Right, and it's happened over the last several meetings.
Next time someone comes in with another electronic message sign, it's like, well, where's the council going on this? I'd like to be able to wrap our hands around the answer to that question pretty quickly. But the problem is I don't even know who that subcommittee is going to be, but I think they would then provide some guidance to the council as a whole. You know, the other entity in this process is the planning board, who would also be invited to the subcommittee meeting, given the opportunity to participate, only because their role is as a recommending body to the council on zoning changes, so they hold a public hearing on any zoning change, so they would have a chance to recommend changes to the planning board, to the council as a whole. But I want to make sure you're involved in this, because the bread and butter of these things, you're going to continue to be getting the applications for these, and I want to make sure that it's something that works for you.
That's good. Okay, so either if you can come the 28th, if not, if we even have a meeting. I think historically we've canceled that meeting.
Yeah.
Pretty much. But if we do have it, if something could get in our packet, maybe, I mean, you don't necessarily have to be here. Maybe the next meeting after that, after we read it, maybe then we can look at it and have some questions for you.
All right.
You
well,
can bring us up to date.
I'll try to get you something before the holidays to be able to have something to comment on, and then we can talk about when you might want me back, if it's valuable to hold that discussion.
That sounds good.
And additionally, emails, phone calls, I welcome any feedback on this particular template, remembering that it's really not meant as a product as much as a template of how it's supposed to look. I mean, just as I'm standing up here, I'm looking, there are certain signs that probably should be special permit that are not listed as such on the template.
Yeah, no,
But
we know it's just
if you have a feeling about certain ones that definitely should or shouldn't be in certain districts, if you've gotten 15 applications for a certain type of sign in a certain district that you think you shouldn't be seeing, or if ones have gone up that you think you should be seeing, here's your chance to make sure to get that special permit on or off that particular line in that particular district so that you get a chance to see that, because that's
Great.
the key to it.
All right, George, thanks for your time.
All right, sure.
Okay. All right, we have minutes, but I guess we're going to approve them next time.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chairman, yeah.
So we should read them there's, as soon as possible. I know they're getting kind of voluminous, so we'll definitely, Stephanie, if you can make a note, just don't let us leave the next meeting without approving or not approving those minutes. And any other business, any other comments?
I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.